Welcome to the 390th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony. This is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big, awesome supporter. You can be awesome and be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I recently did an Off My Mind episode about Severance, about all the ideas and concepts going on and how that would work. Is that a good idea? Or what are possible potential problems that could be happening there? I've also been on this amazing Spider-Man kick from, we're at reached 1968, the John Romita Sr. Stan Lee era. So some cool stuff. And this is last week was a kind of important one about the certain Lord of the Savage Land. How the heck do you pronounce his name? It's something I always wondered. Is it Khazar? Is it Khazar? I don't know if I kind of came up with a solution, but maybe we'll see. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck. You can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or four. If you're really being generous. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. And also, if you are interested in one of the random, off my mind topics, you can go to patreon.com/gmanfromheck, look at the store tab, and you can see episodes that are available for purchase, single episodes. If you're well, I don't want to make an account or whatever, or, just, whatever, join, do all that stuff. Yeah, so I think you can just purchase them on on-demand type of thing. I have them set as the same price as a cup of coffee, a virtual coffee, provided you're not using the iOS app, which charges you 30% more. So just go online. What is going to be on this week? Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. This week, the movie feature is Captain America: Brave New World. So it feels, what was the last Marvel movie? I feel like we hardly have any. It's since they've kind of scaled back, since people are complaining, oh, it's superhero fatigues and blah blah blah, and some people are complaining about this movie. I don't. We'll get more. I'll save that for later. I enjoyed it. I had fun. Then Severance was insane last week. So I'm that week behind. It's that one. We got some prime target. Harley Quinn. Got interesting. I'll talk about that later. Something happened when I was watching that. Nothing really that exciting, but and then Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. That's it for this week. So I believe Cobra Kai did start. We'll try to get some of that going next week. And also Invincible. I don't know what's going to happen because I'm so far behind with that because of I blame Amazon's release schedule. When you're dropping 3 episodes a week, right at the borderline of my coverage, whatever. So now how many am I 4 behind? 5? I just don't think I can ever get caught up. And at this point, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know, if you are really into the show, if are caught up or semi caught up, does it make sense for you to listen to me talk about episode 1 and 2 when you're at episode 5? And if you don't care about the show, then you probably don't care to hear about it. So I don't know. What about news? Let's talk about that. So Captain America: Brave New World. We'll talk more about that later. Apparently, it made $12 million on the Thursday night showings, which I guess is pretty good. I don't always pay attention to that. I sometimes mention it, report it. Apparently, Winter Soldier made $10.2 million. Now, does that not account for inflation or anything? Because Winter Soldier was 2014? So I don't know. It's projected to make, I think it was $80 million for the 3-day weekend and $94 million if you go 4 days. So hopefully. I still feel like a lot of people aren't going to movies. They're just I'm going to watch at home. And so I don't know. But it's I enjoy the big theater experience. And with this movie especially, there's someone pops up on screen and you hear just getting the reaction from someone's like, whoa. More on that later. I mean, while we're on Marvel, some rumors. Tramell Tillman, who is Mr. Milchick on Severance. The rumor possibly that he may be replacing Jonathan Majors as King. So that's interesting. I mean, he's good on Severance. I mean, he's great. That could be interesting to see that. But then they're saying that, maybe they would cast him. It's like just to kind of put like Kang, because what are you going to do with Kang? You're building up all this Kang stuff, and all of a sudden you're just like going to ignore him. So the idea is, what if they're just going to cast him and like kill him off or lock him, do something to him. So we'll see. But I mean that could be cool. Even if they're not going to do that whole Kang dynasty. I mean, I'm not a huge Kang in the comics fan. But just the fact that they've been building stuff up in the MCU, I feel I'm kind of curious, what they had planned. This I don't even know why I'm mentioning this. Margaret Qualley, who was last seen in The Substance. I don't think she's done anything since then. That was just recent. People are saying, oh, she might be playing Rogue or in talks or whatever. But the thing is with like the X-Men stuff, I don't know how this is being handled at Marvel. There's no director, so far. No director whatsoever. And we're getting all this like, oh, this person might be Cyclops, this person might be this person. So I'm just really curious, if there's no director, does that mean they're not going to have a say in the casting? Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The director may not necessarily always have a say in it. But I would think you'd want, if you're going to direct this movie, you want to work with people who you want to work with. You're going to look at the script, tweak it or whatever. What is your vision? And yeah, with someone like Marvel, I'm sure your hands are tied a little bit or whatever. You don't have complete control because you need to do Marvel's vision, but not that vision. I just it seems weird. It's like, oh yeah, we got this cast. Hey Bob, you want to direct this movie? Here's who you're working with, and you're like, wait, what? I don't like this guy. And it's like, that's who you're casting is Joe Feebleman. That's not how we see him. I don't know. It just, but who knows? Because I mean, maybe that's just how Marvel rolls. We're like, yep, we're controlling. This is who we want, and because also with the Marvel movies, it's so much bigger than just one. I hate to say it. It's bigger than one director's choice, one director's vision. Because if you are going to say, like, yeah, we want to cast the X-Men, you're looking at long term, like, okay, who could we get? And then, after we do this X-Men movie, we probably want to dip into here, or go here. And, who could carry that off? And who may or may not be available, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Maybe they do it. So I hate reporting on the rumors, but sometimes they're kind of funny. And I wish I would like actually keep track of it, and then this has never happened, or this has been completely debunked, or whatever. But apparently, another rumor: J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, is rumored or whatever for a key role in Marvel. As who? And I'm not knocking J-Lo. She's talented. I don't listen to her music, but she's a great singer. She's a great performer. She can act. But it's who? I don't know. Now, so this is like what I was getting at. So Deadline reported that a couple of people are like in the running to direct Clayface at DC. So we got Jeff Wadlow, who did Fantasy Island and Truth or Dare, the recent Fantasy Island, and then James Watkins, who did Speak No Evil. They're not. So what the report said, I believe, is they're not really looking at casting so far yet because they want the director to have a say in it. Which again is like what I was saying. You would think that if you're going to direct a movie, you want to, who are you going to be working with? But maybe Marvel is just completely different the way they handle things. There's not much really to say here, but Harrison Ford commented on like stepping into William Hurt's shoes or his role, as Thaddeus Thunderbolt, and I feel that it's kind of interesting. Harrison Ford said that he was delighted, and he kind of liked that. I think he kind of liked that the character was already established and fleshed out, so then he can just do it and add his own thing to it. And he said that he always, I don't know about this, but he's like, yeah, I always wanted to be in a Marvel movie. Really? I mean, because I guess there's just so many interviews where he just seems so angry. I mean, but he did seem like he was having fun every time he's, talking about Red Hulk. So, maybe that's different. But the interesting thing, if we look at it, is okay, why is he playing Thunderbolt Ross? Because sadly, William Hurt is no longer with us. So you can recast Ross, but you don't want to recast Black Panther. And I'm not saying forget Chadwick Boseman, because again, I say every time I get an opportunity, he was amazing. And as I say every single time too, I feel like the character is important to a lot of people. And I think that, sure, you can make another character have no, but there's just something about T'Challa, about Black Panther. And I feel like he is, too important to the Marvel Universe that you could just say, well, he got killed off screen. The character is no longer with us. I don't know. Dave Bautista, he's mentioned several times he's done playing Drax. He has no interest in doing it. He's like the only way he would do it is if James Gunn called him and asked him to do something as Drax. But obviously with James Gunn at DC now, that's not going to happen. But the other thing is like, does anyone want him to play Drax again? I mean, nothing against. I mean, he was great at. I feel like Drax kind of had his run. I don't need to see Drax anymore. He had 3 movies plus a special. That's fine. Sometimes while he could be hilarious, and Dave Bautista really did a great job. That's one. It's not the Drax that I would expect for the comic. Totally different character in a lot of sense. But the Drax that we had in the movies was great. It was funny. But there's sometimes I felt it was a little annoying. Like it's like, okay, here we go again. I don't feel like we need any more Drax. We had enough. So okay, that's fine. Dave Bautista, you don't want to do Drax anymore? That's fine. I'm okay. But he does. He is willing to play another character in Marvel or DC. So I don't know what it was. Was it like the makeup, it's just, he's just like, no, I've had it with that. And I wouldn't blame him. So that's fine. Continued, I mean, I feel like we've every couple months or whatever, it's always William Dafoe. William Dafoe's Green Goblin. It's like, he's in talks to be Green Goblin again. Blah, 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 Green Goblin. And part of it is, the fuel to this is because every once in a while, William Dafoe will say something about it. So does that mean there's facts? I don't know. The other thing I saw something briefly about, I forget his name, and I apologize. The voice actor for Norman Osborn in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, he's like excited about like where the character is going to go. Obviously, if you know stuff about Norman Osborn, I don't know why I'm tiptoe. Everyone knows about Norman Osborn, right? So he's looking forward to that. But then I don't know if they've actually been talking about like a live action Norman Osborn and having the same dude play Norman Osborn. Okay, we'll see. Speaking of Black Panther before, I think it was a producer or something like that teased like when it could potentially come out. It'd be like after Secret Wars, and I think Secret Wars is 2027. So maybe we'll get something then. And then at first I saw the Wild Robot sequel. I'm like, what? Like, they're going to do a sequel to Wild Robot? And my first gut was like, why? It's like, it was such an amazing movie. I saw it, I think it was, I don't know if it was January. I saw it fairly recently, December, January. So I was like, slow to the whatever game, slow to the boat. I don't know what I'm saying. So I love the Wild Robot. It is so amazing. But then I was like, wait, it's based off of, I think it's based off of a series of books, right? So if there's more than one books, then yeah, you can definitely do more than one movies. There's material there to base off of, but it hasn't been like officially green lit yet. But I think it's gotten a lot of praise, so it seems like it would make sense. So you get going on it, because how long would it take to make? Then the last bit of news, Thunderbolts asterisk. So apparently, I must have missed it, but I think it was during the Super Bowl. the asterisk, there's like a poster that came out after that. The asterisk supposedly is the Avengers are not available or something like that. That's what it means. If that's the case, But other people are talking about that the asterisk has changed. That originally it had 6 prongs, and then it changed to 5 prongs. So people are saying, oh, maybe it's just they changed the font. But other people are like, oh no, the 6 prongs, spoiler, 6 prongs is because there's 6 members on the team. Switching it to 5 is maybe someone's going to die on the team. And then people are saying, oh, maybe it's going to be Taskmaster because Taskmaster is hardly in any of the trailers or footage or whatever. Spoiler? I don't know. It's all speculation, but who knows? I am super looking forward to Thunderbolts asterisk. I cannot wait to see that. And I cannot wait for the rest of the podcast, but that's going to be the news for the week. All right, with comic books. So I didn't say at the beginning of the show, things are crazy. And every time it looks like it's like, oh, I'm going to have a head start. I'm going to get a lead on this week. I'm going to get ready, start whatever, because since I'm a little behind on Severance and Human Target, it's like, oh, I could watch it. And also with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, since there was 3 episodes, previous week, and I'm only doing 2 per week, I was like, oh, nope. I didn't start watching until like late Wednesday, and so with the comics, I was like, I got to start reading. I didn't get to read everything. So like at Image, and the thing usually with Image, because Image is awesome, I usually start reading Image comics like earlier, because I get early access. That makes my life so much easier. Makes it so much easier to read the comics. And same with like Marvel. I mean, they're on it, like awesome. Thank you so much. But with Marvel or with Image, since that's what we're starting with, I guess I dropped the ball, and I thought I had already read some stuff from Image, and I didn't. So what did I miss? Thankfully, the good news is there's not a whole lot that I would have read normally. There's something Bug Wars. I don't know what that is. Okay, Bug Wars is by Jason Aaron. And see, here's the other annoying thing. I'm trying to look on previews, and they don't have all the Image books listed. Because I think it's a publishing or distribution thing that Image doesn't only distributes its trades through them. I don't know. So this is Slade Slaymaker is a kid from Alabama suddenly lost in a vicious world beyond his imagining, a world of marauding ant armies, spellcasting spider witches, and beetle-riding barbarians, a kingdom of tiny but deadly warriors hidden in his own backyard. The same world that saw his father eaten alive by insects now plunges young Slade into the middle of a brutal bug war to decide the fate of his family. Yeah. Oh man. So now I'm really bummed I missed it because Mahmoud Asrar does art, and I think he's amazing. I love checking out his Instagram. Yeah, so that came out this week. Because I always try to read the number ones to see if it's something cool. So we had that. We also had Geiger number 11, which, as you know, is really cool. So I'm bummed that I missed that. There was also, let's see, there's the Hive number 1. Oh wait, am I looking at the right week? Because on Comixology, Amazon, whatever you want to call it, it says that this isn't coming out until February 19th. Why is that? Oh, because that's AJ Lieber and Mike Henderson. Okay, so I have to check. So I'll try to remember to talk about that next week. So let's see what else we have. I Hate Fairyland number 20. I'm behind on that. I don't think I'm reading Lucky Devils. And then Transformer 17 and Witchblade number 8 came out. So those are the books at Image that I dropped the ball and did not read. So I will try to discuss those next week. At Marvel, I almost read everything that I normally read. And like I said, because just the opportunity to read faster earlier. We have All New Venom, number 3. I thought they recently said I don't know if it's issue 5 that we're going to find out the secret. That's the only thing. I haven't been super crazy about Venom. I feel like we've had so much Venom stuff just recently. I didn't read all that Venom Wars, and I feel like I missed a lot, but I'm trying to pick up the pieces. So as an aftermath of that, aftermath. And I was just thinking, because I teach math. So what do you have after math? Oh, I got PE, whatever. Venom, all new Venom. There's a new person as Venom. We don't know. There's 4 suspects. I'm just babbling too much. Luke Cage, Rick Jones, Joe Robertson, and Mystique. Those are the potential people that could be this new Venom. And it's really weird. So last week, spoiler, because Dylan Brock is no longer Venom, and he's living with Mary Jane and Paul, that doof Paul with the man bun. And he's like, I need Venom back. Why did Venom leave me, and what's going on? So he's like, trying to figure out who is this new Venom. And he goes to this like an AIM head warehouse or something like that. So Venom shows up there. They're fighting the AIM mercenaries, whatever, and Venom gets shot in the head. So then they're saying, okay, and there's just like a big hole in Venom's head. So it's like, okay, if there's a head underneath that, it's toast. But Venom's still talking like everything's fine. So then they're saying, okay, that must mean it's not Luke Cage, because Luke Cage is bulletproof, and if Luke Cage got shot in the head, it wouldn't put a big hole in there. So then, like what Dylan's saying, so okay, it must be someone shorter than however tall, Venom is like huge. So it's got to be, it can't be Venom. And then Mystique shows up. Spoiler, I shouldn't have said that, but too late. I'm not going to edit it out. So it's not Mystique. And which, did anyone really think it's Mystique? Because Venom's been doing like some heroic things, so we're trying to figure out who this is. And as we're getting all this narration, I mean, part of the thing I wonder is like how much of this is like the person underneath or inside speaking, and how much is like Venom. And because like one of some of the stuff that Dylan's noticed is Venom's not always saying we, and he's like I. He's like not we, and then it's like we. So yeah, because of this mystery, I am interested. Once we find out, I don't know. Is it going to still be interesting? Which reminds me of something that I want to do an off my mind about, and I don't know if there's. Yeah, maybe I should still do that. I don't think this is a good week. Maybe in a couple weeks we'll do an off my mind about like mysteries in comics. So here's your little tease in the middle of the podcast if you're listening to this part. If you didn't skip this, Amazing Spider-Man 67. Oh, the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, and this is like more than 8 issues, right? Because I think next week or the next one we're getting it's either. Let's see, I can look it up and open up my comic. We're getting, no. So in 2 weeks, we're getting it. This is 67. We're getting issue 68 and issue 68 point deaths, which is so stupid that they're doing that. Do 68.1, do 68.5, but do 68 point name of the arc, the story, whatever. That doesn't make any sense. So. It's Spider-Man. He, after one of his fights, was like shown like all his loved ones dying, and then he basically just went full on emo, and he's just like, what is the point? There's no point in doing anything. Everyone's going to die, so it doesn't matter if I save someone, because they're just going to end up dying, tomorrow or next week, next month, or whatever. And he doesn't want to fight anymore. And then in this issue, Doctor Strange is like, dude, you're supposed to be the champion. You got to do something. And he's like, nah. He's like, I'm good. And Doctor Strange is like, okay, but it's more than just saving the lives. There are worse things than death, torturing souls and all that. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then the X-Men are out like fighting, and yeah, so Spider-Man is just kind of done. And it's kind of silly. But what it is interesting with Juggernaut and with the his connection to the gem. I can never remember. I never remember what the gem is. I read it all the time, and I think I just kind of skim over the name of the gem thing. So, but he does some fighting, which is interesting. Cable, Love and Chrome, number 2. This is an interesting book because it's David Peppo's writing. I should mention that, and Mike Henderson doing the art. But we have. I guess my thing, and what's interesting, did I just say that, is I don't know when this takes place. Like, is this Cable now in some future whatever? Or was this a moment from his past? And I think I may have mentioned this last week or last month. That's one of the things that's cool about Cable is because of his age, and I don't even know how old he's supposed to be, but you think he's old because he's got the gray hair. That doesn't necessarily mean anything because maybe he went gray early, and because we saw Nate Gray started going gray. X-Man started going gray when he was young. So this could, we don't know when this takes place. So this could be something that happened before New Mutants number 98, or it could be happening now, and I think that's kind of interesting. Although, with the way what happens at the end, things aren't looking too good for Cable, so maybe it is now. No, I take it back because he does have Bell, that AI, so it's probably something a little more current. I think it's supposed to be now, but who knows? So he's found his group of other people who have like the technovirus, and so it's like he's not alone anymore, and I think that kind of makes some interesting things. And he's actually found like a kinship. Basically he's got a girlfriend. And I think that's good for him because Cable doesn't really seem to he doesn't seem to get to like settle down. And even though he's not settled down, he's in the middle of fighting like all the time. But he should have a girlfriend or find some love, be have a partner. So, but yeah, things aren't looking too great for him. Aside from that, Deadpool number 11. So you can see on the cover, because I don't think I mentioned it last week, Deadpool and his mercenary company with his daughter and with Taskmaster, they need money. And so they're like, okay, Taskmaster's like, well, the only things that are really paying are the jobs that you would normally pass on because, Deadpool's not, he's got some morals. He's not completely, cold-blooded. So he's like, I'll do it, whatever. Give me a job. We got to do it. He's like, all right, here's your target. And the target is Spider-Man. Miles Morales, Spider-Man. So he goes after Miles Morales. And is he going to go through with it? And because then Ellie's like, Dad, you can't do that. He goes after him. He pulls the trigger at one point. So let's just say that. And the problem is, there's a couple things. But Miles Morales, man, he's just got an attitude, and so I'll say, there is like a hit, there's a shot, but also Miles Morales at the same time. So this is like, wait, how's this possible? Miles Morales has his new vibranium suit, but what drives me nuts, I did an Off My Mind about Miles Morales, and he's constantly getting upgrade after upgrade after upgrade. I don't understand why they're doing so much. It's almost like you're saying like Miles Morales can't handle things on his own. We need to keep upgrading him. Like the fact that he's got this Venom sword, the energy sword, makes no sense. He's got this spider sense expand. It's crazy. And then, he's got the Venom blast. He can turn invisible. It's like, why does he need all this stuff? If he's like Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man doesn't have all this stuff. He can cling to walls. He's got spider sense, and he's strong and agile. But and then on top of the vibranium suit, I don't understand this. He has vibranium webbing. Like what does that even mean? And how much vibranium webbing has he been given? Because it used to be like oh man, I'm almost out of webbing. I go talk to Peter, get some more. Because I don't know if he had before. Did Peter eventually give him the formula? But now he has vibranium webbing. What is going on? And he's just got an attitude. He's like, come on, he's like, just chill out, Miles, dude. Then there's Deadpool team up number 5. So I think this was the last Rob Liefeld issue. I didn't read it, but it's like, wait, is that Spider-Gwen on the cover? What does she have to do with Deadpool? Because there's some interesting, I did flip through this. We got that Major X character, which I don't really know much about him. Even though I read the one miniseries, I was so confused. Like, is he Cable's son? I don't even understand. And I haven't read any of this issue, but Shatterstar's in here, and he's got this like weird gold skin tight costume. It's like, wait, what? And Hercules is here. It's like, okay, and so I don't know what Shatterstar he's got like this like skin tight gold metal costume. I just and there's a shot like from his back, and you can see like his buttocks. It's just like I don't know what's happening. So that's out. That came out this week. You can check that out. And that's, I guess, Rob Liefeld's last issue. He's mad at Marvel because him and his family didn't get invited to the after party. But no, I mean, again, all seriousness, I touched on this last week. There should be respect to the creators. So, but I don't know if that extends to parties and all that. Whatever. I talked about it last, and by whatever, I'm not dismissing it. It's because I talked about it last week, and I'm not going to dwell on it because I don't want to sound like I'm diminishing anything. Whatever, the creators should be treated respectfully. Deadpool and Wolverine #2. I enjoyed the first issue, but I started reading this, and I don't know if it was just a matter of time or whatever. But I started like, okay, what's going on? And I started maybe I didn't give it a fair shot. Because I started falling off and not like reading it. Of course, like I said, just limited time. Eddie Brock Carnage. Okay, what do I think about Carnage? I hate Carnage, right? I can't stand Carnage. But dang it. Eddie Brock and Carnage, what does that mean? What is going on? So of course, I did read it. I pretty much read all of it. Skimmed a little bit here and there, but I read it. Basically, somehow, for some reason, Eddie Brock and Carnage have bonded. And again, this is probably from whatever I missed in that Venom War comic or series event. And Eddie's like, okay, we can bond, but I'm only going to kill killers. But Carnage doesn't necessarily want to go for that. Because it starts off where Eddie is on a plane, and supposedly there is a killer on the plane. There's a serial killer. And he's going to take him out. So it's kind of like we're saying, okay, Carnage is going to kind of be like the Punisher. He's going to kill the evil, the wicked, or whatever. But will Carnage always agree with that? Because there's this fight where Carnage is like, just kill everyone, just go. But Eddie's like, no. And then something else happens. So it's like, wait, what's happening here? We had Mighty Thor. Thor's final adventure begins here. That's tempting. I didn't read that. Magic #2. I kind of skimmed through this again because of time. I will go back and read this. I don't know how I feel about this kid that she kind of saved that's involved with this magic stuff, but we'll see. There was Marvel Mutts. I didn't read that. Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, #5. So we got some interesting things here. So the Midnight Mission has been kind of messed up, been destroyed. The others are still kind of trying to, do their job and help people and visiting. Like the Night Hunter's Moon or whatever, he's a doctor. And him and a soldier, they go to this family's apartment, whatever, because he wants to, treat this kid because they, whatever, asked for it before. But then the dad's like, no, it's like, you're not touching my son or whatever, like this. And then he's like, okay. He's like, we'll leave here. And soldiers like gets all insulted and because they're trying to help, and because the guy's like, you guys are drug dealers and you hang out with vampires and this and whatever. And so it's like interesting how, and then the doctor, I forget his name, he's like, nope, we'll just come when the dad's not here. And but then while all this is happening, Moon Knight is gonna fight the dude who's like setting him up, who's the cause for this, the actual drug dealer dude. So he's like, okay, fight, and winner takes all type of thing. and the fight goes on, but there might be something up this other dude's sleeve, so we'll have to see. New champions. I didn't love the first issue, and I was like, I don't know if I'd want to read the second issue. I didn't. I may still check it out. I didn't because of time, but that cover, I don't like that cover. And I guess to clarify, it's like, one, who's this kid with the tarot cards? I don't even remember if they were mentioned in the first issue, if we saw that. But then we have this girl in the background. Was she mentioned in the first issue? Am I just forgetting everything? Because a bunch of people were like called in accidentally, to be be champions. But it looks like, is this a girl Magneto, like a little girl Magneto? I don't know. And a lot of the champions, they're like, are they like 10 years old? I'm not 10 years old, so this comic maybe it's just not meant for me. That's fine. One World Under Doom. I don't know how I feel about this. Part of it, again, was time, trying to read everything. So because a lot of these I was reading, I just got behind. I'm reading right before I could, so I guess that's the other thing to clarify. It's not that I'm like not doing anything. I'm working during the day, but I also do some tutoring. And normally I only tutor like 1 day a week, but this week I tutor twice. So that took some extra time. So that's why I'm a little behind. I'm not just being a total slacker. But so I was like, reading these right before I'm recording now. And so I was reading this issue. I like Dr. Doom, but sometimes it's just, he becomes tiresome. So he swindled the Sorcerer Supreme title from Doctor Strange. He's like, I will end this vampire stuff, but you need to let me have this. And then he's like, psych, I'm not giving it back. And what has he been doing in Latveria? He's been, had the whole city under a magic dome. No one knew what's happening. And now he finally puts this message out. It's like, basically he's saying that the world is like under his command type of thing, that, there's gonna be like no crime or this or that, whatever, but he'll let the leaders, our elected leaders, still be in place and rule, whatever, as long as they agree not to go against him or whatever. And there's some people are like, yes, okay, we obey, it's like, mind control, what's happening? And there's a group of heroes who are like, this, what are we gonna do? And, so we got like a bunch of Avengers, Fantastic Four. I don't remember, was there any X-Men besides Storm? We had like Squirrel Girl. Yeah, so I don't think there's any other X-Men. So we got the Avengers, Captain Marvel, Captain America, because there's two Captain Americas. I'm not just repeating. Scarlet Witch, Vision, Thor, Iron Man, Storm, and Black Widow. Then we got the Fantastic Four, along with Alicia Masters. And then we have Squirrel Girl, Nancy Whitehead. That's Squirrel Girl's friend, right? Brain Drain, which is also Squirrel Girl's friend. I missed that series. Of course, Ryan North wrote this. Of course, he's going to bring them in. Then we got Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. So yeah, no X-Men. And we'll have to see what Dr. Doom. And I guess the big problem I have with this is, obviously, Dr. Doom's going to lose the Sorcerer Supreme title. And him ruling the world, it's not going to last forever. Something's going to happen. And so it's just like, here we go again. So I don't know. Psylocke issue 4 came out. I'm bummed because I didn't get to read this. I've been enjoying that. There's also Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider issue 10. I want to like this comic more than I do. Like as I keep saying, it is better than a lot of the recent Spider-Gwen miniseries we had. But the problem I'm having now is it's like 10 issues and it's still all this Black Tarantula stuff. And I'm just like, just move on from that. I don't want these long story arcs with the same villain, because if I don't care about the villain, it's like, it continues. And then we have Spider-Boy. I didn't read this. Oh, the Dragon's Challenge conclusion. I got it. This comic's so ridiculous, but I'm definitely going to read it. Captain America, Sam Wilson, Captain America #2. I'm not digging this story so much, and it's weird because we have a different Red Hulk. Because you look at that cover, it's like, Red Hulk fighting Sam Wilson just right when the movie comes out. But because also we are going to get Red Hulk, where Thaddeus is, did Doctor Doom capture him? Because he was like in Russia, and so we're going to see that soon. But yeah, I'm not digging this story so much. And then we had X-Men 11. This was let me remind myself what happened here. Yeah, so this there's some interesting things here. One new member, I forgot her name. There are some developments on her power, like what can she do? So I don't have any attachment to this character, but I think it's kind of interesting that what she finds out. And then someone shows up, and I don't know if I should mention that someone. Yeah, it's Corsair. I'm just going to say it. And it seems like whenever he comes around, there's always trouble. And Cyclops is like, "What are you doing?" But it's interesting because he was just in Phoenix, and now he's here. But he kind of brought some trouble with him. So who knows what's going to happen. Over at DC, so there was not a lot at DC, but I didn't get a chance to read stuff because I don't have early access to DC, and I'm going to cry about it. Absolute Batman #5. So this is one where, maybe I need to go back and read this, because as I'm reading this, I was like, wait, how did Thomas Wayne die? And seeing, like, I'm still trying to figure out, like, what is Batman doing? This Batman versus Black Mask, and what's happening in Gotham, what's happening with his cape, like how it can do all this stuff, and what's happening with Batman and Alfred. Are they going to work together or not? And yeah, Batman. I mean, I don't want to spoil things, but oh my gosh, man, he gets beat up, or he goes. That doesn't get beat up, but he takes on a lot of like damage, and yeah, it's just. And Alfred's like, I'm not going to help you. Basically, it's like, dang, I don't know. What I'm curious about, what I think the main thing I really care is the fact that we have Martha. She is alive, and it's like, obviously, Scott Snyder is like, let's make her alive. One, to mix things up. Great, awesome. That's cool. I'm just curious, like, okay, what does he have planned? Where is this going to go? And that's what I'm mainly reading to see, okay, what is he going to do with her? So I think that's what's interesting. DC versus Vampires, I need to get caught up on that. I haven't read this volume. I didn't read Batman and Robin 18, one, because of time, but two, this whole, who are they looking for? Is it Memento or something like that? I am going to read this to see like what's happening here, but I haven't been like on the edge of my seat with that. Green Lantern Corps #1. This was actually better than I thought. I was like, I haven't been loving the Green Lantern comics so much. They've been fine. I do immensely appreciate the fact that we're done with the United Nations of Planets. That they're not in command, because that was just ridiculous. It does seem kind of cool the way they're setting things up, and just seeing all the fact that we have Jessica, Jessica Cruz, we have Simon Baz. I don't remember seeing Kyle in here, but he's on the cover, and you got Guy Gardner on the cover, and Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart. Is he on the cover? There's someone else who's like surprise Green Lantern. I don't want to spoil it if it's not with someone like kind of like the last person you would expect to see, maybe. So it's definitely there's potential here. So I'm happy about that. And we have Action Comics 1083. I wasn't super crazy about this. It's this. I mean, what I do like about this is, one, it's a little different from all the Brainiac, or not Brainiac, like the Doomsday and the Lex stuff. You know, it's more self-contained, and there's a lot of like Clark Kent like trying to report on something, and then Superman, you know, got sort of attacked, or Clark got attacked, and it's like, what does that mean? And then you know, so Superman and Clark Kent are trying to investigate what happens, and then they come into contact with like a longtime Superman villain. What does that mean? And so I'm kind of curious to see where this is going to go. And then we had I didn't read. We had Aquaman #2. I'm kind of curious about what this means, because you know, he went into this other like dimension or something. I don't know. Is that going to be cool? What is happening here? So I didn't get a chance to read it, but I will read that. We had Batman Dark Patterns #3. I didn't read that. I should be reading that. And then Black Lightning #4. I'm not reading that either. But that is it. Those are the books that came out this week. Some of the books that I read this week. But yeah, that's comics.
Okay, holy cow, Severance. Season 2, Episode 4, Woe's Hollow. This was kind of crazy. And the way it starts and the way last episode ends. So last episode, Mark's, you know, undergoing reintegration, and you know, he's getting some flashes, and it like totally left us where he is remembering waking up on the conference table when he was first severed. This episode does not pick up after that. So at first I'm like, wait, what the heck happened? So not really sure how much time. Is it just like the next day? So is he okay? Did he remember anything else? What the heck is going on? We don't find out. So I guess we're gonna have to wait. It starts off. So Irving seems to go from like severed to unsevered, whatever, or vice versa. You know, like how it is in the elevator. You know, when it's like, and it kind of like zooms in. I don't know how they do it. It's like they zoom in, the background kind of like changes or something like that. And the only difference is he's out in the snow, and he's got like this black furry coat on and a hat, and he's like in the middle of this. At first, it's like, is it a huge snowfield? But it's like he's on a big frozen lake, and he just yells out, "Hello!" And there's like nothing. He's like, "Hello!" It's just like in the middle of nowhere, just like all white, whatever. And you can see like, and then you hear there's like some cliffs. Like we hear, "Irving, it's me. I'm up here." So like from a cliff top, Mark? Yeah. Hey. And Irving's like, "What's happening? Where are we?" "I have no fudging idea, but there's a path up to the cliff right down there." Irving's like, "Do you want me to come up?" "Well, yeah." And Irving's like, "I'm on the ice. I'm on the fudging ice." And Mark's like, "Maybe get off of it. Come on." And Irving's like, I'm coming. And Mark's like, "Be careful." So Irving makes it to the side. He starts going up the path, and Mark yells out, "It's very steep." So the path is like through trees and stone. So again, let's pause right here. They're outside. So these are the innies outside in the snow. And they, so what that means, going back to Mark, he must have gone back. He must agreed to this. All of the two of them must have gone to Lumen and say, "Hey, we want to be severed and go outside." Then you hear, "Irving?" So Helly's there. She's also in a black coat and a hat, and she's like midway up. And Irving's like, "Where did you come from?" And she's like, "I don't know. What are we doing out here?" And then, "Up here. Follow my voice." So they go up, continuing the call out to Mark. They make it to the top, and he kind of runs to them. He asks if they're okay. And Irving's like, "Did you wake up on the ice too?" And Mark's like, "Yeah, what was that about?" And Helly's like, "On the cliff." So that's where she came from. Then they get startled by some screaming, yelling. It's Dylan G. And he's like, "Is it you?" And Helly's like, "Of course it's us." And he's like, "Holy spit. Out fudging side. Oh my God. I mean, I knew there was no actual ceiling, but this is fudging insane." And then Helly's like, she yells out, "Hello, hello." But there's like an echo. Then they see something on like the next kind of outcropping. So I don't understand this. So apparently Mark hadn't noticed it before, and looking at it, looks like a TV on a cart. So they walk over to it. There's like a DVD menu screen with a picture of Kier standing looking like over the cliff, and like welcome is on the screen. There's only an option, play title. So Mark grabs a remote, and then Milchick's on the screen. Good morning, refiners. This is Mr. Milchick from work, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to your first ever outdoor retreat team building occurrence. So each letter is capitalized, and he's like, the ORTBO is in response to your desire to see the outside world. With your Audi's blessings, you will spend the next 2 calendar days walking the meadows, thickets, brambles, and brooks that make up the Dieter Egan National Forest. And then Dylan's like, who the fudge is Dieter Egan? Because, they know all about the history of Kier and Egan, whatever. There's no one's ever heard of Dieter Egan. So there's a pause, and then almost like you heard, like Milchick's like, Dieter Egan? Some of you may be quietly yearning to learn more. But it's weird because there's like edits in this, because at one point it's like there's a clear edit. And as I'm watching this, I was like, okay, is that little cut there, is that meant to me? Is that supposed to mean something, or is it just how they filmed it? So he's like, the truth you seek lies within the 4th appendix. Kier dictated a 4th appendix in his final hours of life, a text of such sanctity that it is forbidden upon the severed floor. It's waiting for you in Scissor Cave. And then there's like kind of a close-up of his face. The very same grotto where Kier Egan tamed the 4 tempers for the very first time. And do you remember, stray not from Kier's path, lest you roil nature's wrath. Royal. It's like the words they use in this, it's like, where are they from? There will be help among the way. Happy fortunes, MDR. And then the video returns to the title screen. So then they try like looking around for Scissor Cave or like which way they should go. Then Dylan points, what the fudge is that? There's someone else standing on another outcropping in a suit. So it's like, okay, did they just come out there? Was it there the whole time? And Haley's like, it looks like Mark. And then his left arm slowly raises and points. So I'm assuming it's like an animatronic, like, what they have in the hospital, not the hospitality room, whatever the display was. So then Mark's like, Milchick said there'd be help along the way. And Irving's like, I wouldn't trust a word out of that mountebank's mouth. So a mountebank is one word, Mountebank, is a person who deceives others. And Irving's like, not even televisually. Mark's like, not like we have a lot of other options right now, Irv. And then there's like no opening credits. It's just Severance logos on the screen as they start moving, like in the sky. So that was weird. So they're kind of walking along the cliff edge, like through the trees, and they move silently. It seems like they're kind of going for a bit, and then eventually they see a Heli R figure standing. She's wearing a skirt, no jacket. Her arm raises and points. So they enter a small, like dark cave, and then there's like a light on the wall, and there's a big book with IV, so the 4th appendix, whatever. Heli picks it up. The first page is like, there's a, whatchamacallit, inscription. It says, for Dieter. So Heli reads, Chapter 1, I was not born into this world alone. The lodging of my mother's womb I shared with another, a twin brother who was called Dieter. And Irving's like, Kia had a twin? And Dylan whispers, that's what those things are. What outside they're supposed to be their twinsies thing. So Heli continues, in infancy, he was my bosom friend. But as we blossom into boyhood, he beseeched me to take to the wood with him to live as paupers. My love for my twin, and balancing my judgment, I acceded, and we ventured into the wood towards, she turns the page, Woe's Hollow, which is the name of the episode. And there's this picture, like map to Woe's Hollow. Irving's like, so, what to walk in the brother's footsteps? And Irv's like reading now, he always crept like this at this hour, once concealed by Floa, my brother. And we see like Kier and Dieter like walking, I think. Like someone, at first I was like, is it supposed to be them? Because you see someone with like spikes on their boots. Or maybe it's them, because I guess, I don't know, maybe I haven't really looked carefully. Do they have like ice climbing boots? But then the voice reading changes, unfastened himself. The din of her fervor fell strangely into concert with the music of the wood. His every thrust found rhythm with the trill of the crickets. And the voice changes again back to Irving. And the moaning of the wind and the snowfall's yearly thaw. So the reading's like switching back and forth. Dieter became on that night an instrument of nature. And then Irving's like, and nature played Dieter with elegance. I had no choice but to listen as he split his lineage upon the soil. He stops reading, and then there's a Dylan G figure standing in the field, and he points. And Dylan's like, now there's a me one. So there's more walking, icicles on trees. It's beautiful. Walk by another cliffside. Mark looks at Hallie, and they're kind of alone, and he asks if she's okay. And you can hear the concern in his voice, and she's like, yeah, I just wish I knew where we were going. And behind them, Irv stops to catch his breath, and he looks at Mark and Hallie talking up ahead. And it's like, is he jealous or is he sad because Bert's gone? Dylan comes up out of breath, behind him. They walk through more trees. Now it's Irv next to Mark. What were you and Hallie talking about back there? And he's like, when? And he's like, I don't trust her. I think she might be lying about what her outie saw. And Mark's like, so at this point, I was like, Irving's getting really annoying. And at the end of the episode, I don't know if I still, we'll talk about that. And Mark's like, why would you think that? And he's like, night gardeners? It's clear you do not have an objective perspective due to your feelings for her. And Mark's like, my feelings for her have nothing to do with anything, okay? And he stops. So here's the thing. At this point, just going off of this, not knowing anything else, if you haven't seen the episode. If you have, you know what's going to happen. So obviously Hallie's lying. She said that, she went outside, she talked to a gardener. It's nighttime. So a night gardener, that's weird. You never know. I mean, maybe, who knows? But it doesn't make sense. But just because they all went out and they're in this together, maybe she saw something, what she tells Mark later. She's like, I didn't like who I was or something like that. So maybe she doesn't want to tell him. They don't know each other that well. Even though they're in this together, they don't know each other. And maybe she just wasn't ready for that. I mean, what if she was doing something really awful and, she's not ready to talk about it yet. So it's just, he's like, I don't trust her. And it's like, okay, dude. So he stops, they're near a creek, and then there's a dead something. And Dylan's like, what the fudge? And Irving's like, what is it? And Mark's like, I don't know. It looks like a seal. And Hallie's like, why does it look so messed up? And Mark's like, I don't know. Maybe this is what dead things look like. Irving's like, should we eat it? And Dylan's like, pardon me? Irving's like, we don't know if there's food waiting at the hollow. We don't even know where we are. Dylan's like, they can't let anything happen to us. It's an ORTBO, outdoor retreat team building occurrence, right, Mark? And Irving's like, we don't know what this is. We don't know anything. And Mark's like, Irving, calm down. We all know you had a bad experience the last time you were outside. And he's like, who said I had a bad experience? And Mark's like, oh my God. And Irv turns to Dylan, what did you tell him, dumbass? He's like, nothing. And Mark's like, WTF, let's just get to the hollow. And Irving glares at Dylan. So again, this is more reason to be annoyed with Irving, just the way he's behaving here. And then there's a close-up of a seal. It's like, wait, are those tusks? Is it a seal? What? So more walking. There's this waterfall. At the top, there's doubles of all four standing. Off to the side, Kier's twin was always with him. That's why we provided the very same for each of you. And then Dylan's like, fudge you all, I was right. Because he said they were twins. But so then it's interesting. So it's Mr. Milchick. But he's wearing all white. So it's is he wearing camouflage to blend in? They're wearing all black. Does that mean something? So Irving's like, Mr. Milchick. And he's like, this is the tallest waterfall on the planet. He says that. It doesn't look that tall. Because, you see the doubles of them out there. So you can figure out, okay, that's 5, 6 feet, whatever, give or take. And you try to, it's not that tall. But what they said at the end, after whatever behind the scenes stuff, is, they said that the innies have never seen a waterfall before. So for all they know, that is the tallest waterfall. But it's not that tall. So Mr. Milchek, he's like, you have followed the path of Kier and Dieter and reached Woe's Hollow. You stand upon sacred earth. Irving's like, we're starving, Mr. Milchek. He's like, are you? I thought the waterfall's grandeur would satiate you. I'm teasing, of course. Lumen will always protect and provide. Right this way. As it starts getting dark, they're still kind of walking. They reach a clearing, and there's like 4 big, like kind of blue lit tents, like kind of triangle tents, and there's like a fire pit in the middle. And so he's like, Miss Huang, Miss Huang has been, I always get her name mixed up, has been readying the grill for which we brought in luxury meats. The fire will be used for marshmallows and a recital later. The tents, as you can see, are MDR blue, and the outhouse is stocked with 4-ply washroom tissue. And Helly's like, wow. And he's like, wow, indeed, Helly R. Also, for your comfort and safety, torches, which can provide both a heat and light source. Double duty. So he hands one to Mark. He's like, it's beautiful. And then Miss Huang's like, pretty cool, right? And Irving's like, yes, lovely. So Irving's in his tent, and Helly like calls him outside. So he's like, enter. She's like, I made you a snow seal. So, and she hands it to him. She made like a seal out of snow, and it's got like a little black thing like for his nose or in her eyes or something like that. She's like, in case you were hungry. And she kind of chuckles. And he's like, yeah, I feel silly for suggesting we eat that animal. I suppose it sounded alarmist and paranoid, irrational. And she's like, no, it was fine. We were all a little... And he's like, yeah. So there's a little pause. And then he's like, what did you really see during the overtime contingency? And she's like, I told you. And Irving's like, he's kind of like got a sort of smile, trying to be friendly. It's okay. It won't change anything. And she's like, Irving, okay. And then she leaves. Mr. Milchek gives recital around the fire while Miss Huang, she's like playing music on, I don't know, some keyboard. I don't know what it is. The recital is about Dieter, stuff about Dieter thinking that they'd be woodland paupers forever. He's like, I was looking at him when his eye came out. It popped out from the socket, driven by a sudden torrent of pus from his skull, and he reached up to grasp at his hair, which was suddenly moss that tore easily from his bleeding scalp. And Irving's like, good heavens. And he's like, and as the pus from his eye thickened into sap, I turned from my gargling brother, and I walked to the pool at the hollow where I knew the waterfall would drown out my brother's cries. And Dylan's like, that's really smart. Milchek continues, and it was here that I first encountered the temper woe, a gaunt bride, half the height of a natural woman. And he shows them a picture of like Kier as a kid in kind of like old-timey clothes, and a small woman like standing in front of him. And she looks kind of scary. Almost like kind of like what's her name? Is it Samara from The Ring? Not quite. She spoke to me directly from her eyes and said, this is your doing. You suffered this wantonness. Now he's no one's brother. Only chaos's whore. So there's a long pause, and then quietly, the end. And he's like, wait, what? He's like, perhaps in the morning we'll have time for the next chapter. So he holds the book up. Kier and the Thieving Nanny. And Hallie's like, creepy. Irving's like, did his brother really die that way, Mr. Milchek? And Mr. Milchek smiles. The handbook enriches our work with tales of a founder's life. Every word is true. So Hallie starts like laughing, like trying to hold it in. And she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, Hallie? And she's like, what? And she's like laughing. Hallie R? And she's like, you guys, he melted, right? He turned into the forest because he masturbated. Mark starts like snickering too. And she's like, I mean, seriously, that's actually the dumbest things I've ever heard. Dylan starts laughing lightly. And she's like, right? He jerked off in front of his brother and he got punished for it? And Mark's like, well, you can't say that. And she's like, he just said it. And he's like, well, And Milchek's not happy. You know, we often laugh at what we don't understand. The team I thought I knew would have processed more thoughtfully. Miss Huang, and he like stands, the marshmallows, please. So she stands next to him with a tray. They're like fancy marshmallows because they got like a little picture of Kier like kind of stamped on them. And Mr. Milch's just like, throw them into the fire. And Mark's like, oh. And he's like, Mr. Milchek, come on. And Milchek's like, now, Miss Huang. Mark's like, oh my. And Dylan's like, why? And Milchick's like, marshmallows are for team players, Dylan. They don't just hand them out. And Hallie's like, what? And Milchick's like, good night. And then she's like, wow. And Mark's like, oh my God. And then Hallie's like, to Mark, she's like, hey, what do you think his D turned into? Mark laughs. Irving kind of looks and Dylan smiles. And Irving's like, it isn't funny. And Mark's like, oh, I don't know. It's pretty funny. And Irving's like, well, it's not. See, he's so stuffy and just so, ugh. And Mark's like, okay. And Irving's like, and stop making goo-goo eyes at her. And Mark laughs. He's like, I'm not. And Hallie's like, stop. And then Dylan's like, goo-goo eyes. And then Irving, this is the part Irving gets to know. He keeps pushing. Just tell us, Hallie. So because he's so sad and bitter, he's like, focus on this. Just tell us, Hallie. And she's like, what? Come on, just tell us. And she's like, tell us what? Tell us about him. And she's like, who? The night gardener. And Mark's like, oh, Irv, come on. Did he have a flashlight? What was he wearing? And Dylan's like, what is your deal right now, dude? But Mark ignores Dylan. What color was his shirt? Did he have on a vest? A luminescent vest? Tell us. And Hallie's like, okay. But Irving continues, exactly what was he wearing? And then Mark's like, Irving, that's enough. Enough? And he's like, yeah. Using your pupils to make love to her while your outtie's wife rots away somewhere? And he's like, hey, shut up. And Dylan's like, yeah, fudge you, Irv. And he turns to Dylan, so it's 3 against 1 now, huh? Hallie's like, it's okay. We all know Irving's upset because he can't ever see Bert again, and he's really lonely. And everyone's like quiet, and Irving and Hallie kind of like lock eyes. Then he gets up, grabs a torch. But it's like, okay, did Hallie go too far? But Irving's being such a jerk. He's being a D. So Mark's like, hey, Irv. And Irving's like, fudge you all. And Hallie like goes into her tent. Mark gets up. Dylan's left by the fire. And then there's like a shot of like the burning marshmallows. So Mark peeks into Hallie's tent and whispers, probably a carrot. And she's like, what? And he's like trying to contain a smile. He's like, Dieter's penis. He actually says penis. I'm not censoring it. So he's like trying to make a joke because she asked what it turned into. But it doesn't get a reaction from her. Because she's probably like upset because Irving's being a jerk. And then she's like, yeah, or some other root vegetable. So he enters, zips the tent shut. She's like, that was mean of me to say that to Irving. And Mark's like, I mean, he kind of deserved it. And I can make goo-goo eyes at anyone I want. And there's just almost like the tiny bit of a smile, barely. So he's like, are you okay? And she's like, sorry if I'm distracting you from, he's like, from what? She's like, from looking for your wife. He's like, hey, it's okay. I know we'll find her, and you've already helped so much. And she's like, I have? He's like, yeah. And she's like, okay. So then they like stare at each other. Then they start kissing. Then more passionately. Then they start undressing. Then, dun dun dun. Irving's like walking in the woods with the torch, and he starts calling, Mr. Milchick, Miss Wong. Mark and Hallie are still going at it. So it's like kind of cutting back and forth. Then Irving trips and his torch goes out. So Irving kind of looks around. He keeps calling Mr. Milchick, and then he continues walking. But then he just like lays down. Mark and Hallie are laying, like staring at each other. So they do. Irving just stares at the moon and closes his eyes. It's like, okay, so wait, Irving's outside. He's lost. Is he just letting him? Is he just going to freeze to death? So Hallie finally whispers, I didn't like who I was on the outside. I was ashamed. And Mark's like, who were you? And it's like, okay, is she about to tell him? And then he's like, he before she could say anything, he's like, I don't care who you are out there. I care who you are with me. That's all, okay? Smooch. And then there's kind of like buzzing music for a second, and Hallie turns into like Miss Casey for like a split second. Mark like flinches back, and she's like, are you okay? It was like a fast switch, just like a glitch. And his head, like, he grabs his head, like it hurts for a moment. So it's probably because of the reintegration thing or whatever. So he looks at her and it's Hallie, and she's like, what happened? He like shakes his head. And she's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah. So I don't know. Something's going to happen. Because remember what happened to Petey? Things didn't go well for Petey. He died outside the convenience store. Too much for him. Irving's still outside. He opens his eyes. Then he's in his suit and not in his jacket. He stands up, starts walking, and there's like this weird noise. And then he sees like the workstations, and like one computer's on. There's like bugs or moths or something on there. And then he sees the numbers. He starts like clicking. The visor goes down across from him, and it's Bert. And then Bert raises it back, and he looks diagonally, and it's that creepy half woman just like typing away. Then she turns and looks at him, and then turns back to her screen. Then his screen's all messed up. Numbers are floating around like crazy, like all over. And then there's like moving letters, and then they start making images. Then there's like an eye, and then the lady's right next to his face, and he wakes up, and it's morning, and he like just sits up. So in the tent, Mark sits up. Irving's like running through the woods. Mark exits the tent, calls for Helly. Dylan exits his tent. Mark's like, "Where's Helly?" And Dylan's like, "Irv's never came back last night, and he's not in his tent." Which is weird how he says like that. He never came back last night, and he's not in his tent. Well, obviously, if he didn't come back, he's not in his tent. And Mark's like, "What?" And he's like, "Mr. Milchek." And he's like, "Helly." And Dylan's like, "Mr. Milchek." Milchek comes running up. He's like, "Mark, Dylan, what's happened?" So Mark's like, "Helly and Irv are missing." And Dylan's like, "What the fudge is going on?" So Helly approaches the waterfall, and she's like staring at it. Then Irv comes up behind her and kind of like surprises her. He's like, "Hey, kid." And she's like, "Irving." And he's like, "What are you doing down here? And she's like, "What are you doing down here?" He's like, "I slept outside. I almost froze to death. What you said to me last night, it was cruel. Helly was never cruel." And then quietly she's like, "I'm right here." And then he's like steps closer, and he's like practically like in her face. So again, this really bothered me. And he's like, "So, if you're not her, then who are you? Who would have the power to send their Audi to the severed floor?" And she's like, "I'm sorry?" And he grunts, and he's like, "Rrr," and he grabs her. And he's like, "Mr. Milchek, Mr. Milchek." And she's like, "No, stop, Irving." And he's like almost like dragging her. She's like, "Please stop." And she's like, "Help." Milchek, Mark, and Dylan hear Helly call out. So again, this is like so not cool, Irving. So then they hear Irving calling for Mr. Milchek. They're running. Then they see them down by the water. And, they're like up high. And Irving's like, "Mr. Milchek, Mr. Milchek." And then he's like, "Turn her back, Mr. Milchek." And she's like, "Help." Mark's like, "What are you doing, man?" And Dylan's like, "Irv, what the fudge?" And Irving's like, "She's an Audi." And he shoves her head under the water. Mark's like, "Stop." And Irving's like, "She's been an Audi the whole time, ever since she came back." And Dylan's like, "Stop." And Milchek's like, "Irving, you stop now." Mark's like, "Stop it." And Irving's like, "She's a fudging mole." Mark's like, "What are you doing?" Irving's like, "I'm going to kill her, Mr. Milchek." Shoves her head underwater again. "She's not Helly. She's an Egan." Which that, again, right there. Okay, he's right. Is he justified in all this because he figured it out? That does not make sense how he could figure it out. Maybe there's other information because the show's smarter than I am, but that doesn't make any sense. It could be anyone with money or whatever. Just because, even if it is someone like that, you automatically assume it's an Egan. Why? That doesn't make any sense to how he could just figure it out. So he's like, "Turn her back, Mr. Milchek, turn her back." And then finally Helly's like, "GD it, Seth, do it." So she says his name. So holy crap, it is not Helly. It actually is Helena. So then stupid Irving is like, "Yes, do it, Seth." And he like shoves her underwater again. Milchek grabs like, I don't know if it's like a sat phone or something out of his pocket. He's like, "It's Milchek. Remove the Glasgow block now. Now." And then she changes, and Irving like holds her. He's like holding her. He's like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Helly." And she's like, "What's happening?" So Mark runs down to them. Milchek makes it down, and he's like, "Irving B., stand. You have threatened collegial murder in the pond of Woe's Hollow. For this there can be no penalty but immediate and permanent dismissal. There shall be no formal valediction. catered or otherwise. Your Audi will be notified forthwith. And Holly's like confused. And Dylan yells down, Irv, I'm sorry. I should have listened. Like, listen to what? And Irving's like, it's okay. It's all okay. Just remember, hang in there. And Milchick's like, please refrain from any further speech, as you are no longer authorized to consort with any severed employee, nor they with you. And Dylan's like, leave him alone. And then Milchick's like, turn around. Irving turns, and Dylan's like, leave him alone. Irving he walks up to Milchick, and he gets in his face, their eyes lock, and then Milchick's like, walk into the forest. So he takes a step, then he turns and looks at Mark and then Dylan. Milchick's like, your workspace will be cleared and any personal item discarded. Your file, including any and all professional interactions and personal relations, will be purged and destroyed. It will be as if you, Irving B., never even existed nor drew a single breath upon this earth. May Kier's mercy follow you into the eternal dark. And he lists his phone. Now. Irv closes his eyes. Screen goes black. End of episode. So, holy crap. That's crazy. And then, but what's crazy, I was like, wait, so what does this mean? And in the after thing, spoiler, they're like, yeah, it's been Helena the whole time. Because, she watched a video of Helly and Mark kissing. So has she been studying her moves or expressions and stuff like that? Why has she been doing this? Why has she been posing as Helly? Is it because she's like, well, screw that. I'm not going to let myself be severed. Or maybe she's like, hey, be severed. I'm not going to let myself be at the mercy of my innie, who once already tried to kill me and threatened to chop off my finger or hand or whatever. So she's just like, well, I'll just go in as myself and pretend. Somehow they figured out a way to turn off the chip or whatever. But then the other thing, she was actually helping Mark. So is that all part of Lumen's plan? Does Lumen know that Mark? They whispered not to tell them what they knew. So do they know that Mark knows that Miss Casey is Gemma, or is she doing this on her own? Maybe she's curious for herself. Maybe she's like, this is interesting. Maybe she's obviously, I'm assuming, not married or with anyone in order to undergo this and do this. So maybe she's like, this is kind of interesting. Maybe this is different than the life I'm leading out here. I don't like who I am out there. She said that. And, she told that to Mark when they were in a tent. She's like, I didn't like who I was. Maybe she really doesn't. Maybe she's like, this is a way for me to escape. But they obviously must know that Helena is going in. It's not like she's doing it behind her back. So it's just like, holy crap. This episode was just crazy. Man. So, yeah, you can watch the next episode now. I need to do that as soon as I can. All right, then Prime Target, so Season 1, Episode 4, Kepler. So we're just going to get into it. I don't want to, so I guess I'll say, it is interesting. We're getting more answers, but it's just like, okay, what's going to happen? And at some points, I'm just like, and I'm still trying to, I think the Baghdad stuff, trying to figure out how that is playing into it. But it starts off, Andrea is packed and she's leaving for Baghdad, because she decides she's going to go. Sharon, her friend who is walking through the market, whatever, and then it's darker. He gets chased, and then as he's running, it almost looks like there's the same street punks or whatever, and then someone jumps out in front of him, whoosh, smashes him over the head with like a bat or a stick or some plank. Andrea tries calling him from the car, to tell him that she's on her way, and she'll be there in 8 hours. His phone we see is on the ground, and it's raining. It's lying next to him. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a pool of blood or if it's just a rain. Is he dead? In Edward's apartment, I'm assuming, Taylor says to Edward, she doesn't understand why he won't just go to Kepler to find Safia's missing work, because it's all they've got to go on right now. He's like, nope. He's like, not a chance. I'm not insane. And she's like, what do you think is going to happen to you? He's like, they're going to shoot me. And she's like, oh my God. And he's like, or suicide me. Because it's stuff, so Safia committed suicide. They never, at this point, they're like, well, maybe they made it look like suicide. I don't know if she actually committed suicide or if she was, the way she's writing it, or maybe they know that because she's like, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. So is the worst happened that she was killed, or the worst happened that she gave up and killed herself? She's like, I mean, just don't tell them what your actual research is. And she's like, plus, you're not doing any of this alone. This is my job. This is what I do. I watch you. And he's like, yeah? And how well did that work out for Robert Melinder? And she's like, okay, so you're happy to just walk away. And what about Robert? Since you just graciously brought him up, his life ends without any question. And what about his wife? And Edward's like, widow. And she's like, okay, widow, correct. So none of this touches you? He's like, of course it touches me. But why should I be the one to fix it? And she's like, because, like it or not, you're on the radar now. You think you can just walk away and act like nothing ever happened? There's no chance. I know you're scared, but you need to go to Kepler so we can find out who's behind all this. She's like, look, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And Edward's like, that's not a fact. That's a hypothesis. So he rides his bike there. It's like, I don't know how far away it is. It's like, whatever. So he has to go through security procedures to register, retinal scan, handprint, photo, signature, all this stuff. This woman greets him, tells him to follow her. He's given a fob, whatever, so he can use, scan into doors and stuff. Then he's shown to this lounge area. She points out a group working. They're working on a formula to predict voter behavior. She says the building's open 24 hours. Because they're aware that the creative research doesn't always run to a timetable. She shows them this work area station. It's like an open area. There's kind of glass. And she says, that's going to be his place. But it's no privacy. But I guess everything is open, whatever. She says that everyone keeps a precise digital record of their work, like an archive. She's like, I'll give you a pin so you can access what you're working on. And she's like, it takes a while to come through. We prefer you to work in here, not at home. So none of our systems can be accessed remotely. It's just safer. Or it's probably a way for them to monitor and own everything done, right? I mean, that's totally what it's got to be. And she's like, oh, an orientation meeting midday with Mr. Neild. And she's like, thoughts so far? And Edward just shakes his head. He's like, I feel like a kid in a sweet shop. And she's like, that's the general idea. So he knocks on the door. I think Mr. Neild is that Stephen guy. He's like, it's an honor to have you with us, Ed, really. And he shakes his hand. He's like, it's very informal. We just need to get a rough idea in which way you're headed. And Edward's like, yeah, you mean what I intend to focus on while I'm here? And the dude's like, yeah. So he hands a stylus to write on the screen. He starts writing, and the dude kind of watches over him. Then he gets up. There's a few big monitors where he was sitting at, and they're showing everything that he's writing on the tablet. And pretty quickly, he's filled the screen. So the dude's like, this is your area of research? And Edward's like, yeah, algebraic number theory that's what really fascinates me. So I'm assuming he's kind of faking it, not giving his real idea, because this has nothing to do with prime numbers. But as he's kind of sitting back, he notices this camera kind of up high, sort of on a mantle or a shelf, whatever. It's almost on the ceiling. And he's like, I'm on camera? And the dude's like, yeah, standard practice. Don't worry about it. Ideas need protecting. And listen, if you got any relevant material at home, discs, files, and Edward's like, no, I do everything by hand. And he's like, traditionalist. He's like, even more reason to keep a safe record. Bring it in. He doesn't reply, but Stephen, dude, if it is Stephen, kind of pats him on the back. He's like, good. So it just seems like they want to own everything. In case they decide to kill you, they have everything right there. It just makes it easier for them. So then it cuts to the National Security Agency in Paris, France. This dude in the suit hurriedly walks into the building. Inside, we see this woman behind a desk looking at photographs. I'm pretty sure it's dead Olsen, because just you see a head and there's blood next to it. The suit guy walks in with another, and the other guy's like, those guys who arrested me, they jumped me and threw me into a car. The suit guy's like, you're probably alive because of him. And then they go into the desk lady's office. The other guy they brought in, I didn't notice at first, is Alex, the new guy that started working with Taylor. So she looks at his record, and she's like, oh, training, whatever. She's like, Fort Meade, and then posted to Chicago? She's like, lots of good bars there, barbecue, and have you tried the Red Hots? Or something like that. So she's like smiling. And then she comments on the file, this is his first field assignment. I don't know if I trust this lady. It's like, is this lady the one who killed Olson or not? Or did someone else kill him? So she says, this is his first assignment. And she's like, you arrive. 5 days later, one of your colleagues is shot dead. That's tough. And she's like, Alex, do you know what Syracuse is, right? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, we've been running it quietly for decades. And now all of a sudden it's caught fire and we need to know why. You have any ideas? And he just doesn't really say anything. And she's like, what about Taylor Sanders? Did you talk to her before any of this happened? And he's like, one of the mathematicians that she was watching, Malinger, Cambridge, he killed himself. It kind of hit her hard. And when he says this, her eyes kind of like, she kind of looks away. So is she like involved with his death, or does she know about it? So she's like, where is she now? And Alex like, I don't know. And she's like, thanks, Alex. You can wait outside. So he leaves. Then the suit guy asks, like, what's she going to do? And she's like, she'll call. I know her. She'll call. Then she'll come in. So Taylor goes, I think it's like a hotel room. Edward sits at his workstation. He goes online. He looks at like the research fellows. There's pictures of like everyone there. So he types in Safia's name. No entries found. Then he decides to enter Robert Malinder's name, and his info. He's actually there in the system. You see his picture and like a summary like of stuff. We see Andrea. She's in a cab, and then she's in Baghdad. She's made it there. So she meets with Akram, or the one guy. So I think the other guy wasn't Akram that met Sharon at the club, because that guy seemed younger. I don't remember. So Akram tells her that they were sad when they heard about what happened with her husband, and she's like, she says something whatever, but she's like, where's Sharon? She's like, I tried calling him. Akram's like, I think he might be unwell. So does he know what happened, or is he? I don't know if we can trust Akram. So he asks her if she wants to see it. Is she ready? And she kind of jokes, she's like, I'm not ready. So they head down, and it seems legit, like he's not hiding anything from her, but who knows. So she gets kind of emotional, looking at this. She talks about how centuries between now and then, civilizations fall, people die but aren't lost, some things remain. It's like the finest astronomers and mathematicians of the medieval world. It's like this is where civilization was forged. And then she sees like some writing. I'm assuming that's like Bay al-Hikmah's name. Then back at Cambridge at a pub, Taylor asks Edward what he discovered, and he says that they've been paying Malinder for 30 years since 1994, when he and Safia were in love. And she's like, when she killed himself. And Edward's like, and her work was taken by Kepler. And she's like, okay, what else? He's like, they film everything. They keep everything you write and everything we put on our boards. They somehow capture on their systems and keep it in digital archives. And she's like, wait, so did you get access? He's like, no, not yet. And she's like, well, if they've been doing this for 30 years, then what we need is definitely inside. She's like, he has to get it. And he's like, get it how? And she's like, Ed, figure it out. We need to get access, and we need to do it fast. The bartender guy is waiting outside Edward's place. So Edward walks up, and he like looks at his watch when he shows up. He says he brought dinner to celebrate Edward's first day. He's like British tapas and champagne, but it's like champagne in cans. So he's like, oh, classy or whatever. And inside, he asks how it was, because he's like, are you going to tell me? Edward's like, it was brilliant. And dude wants like more details. So Edward says it's kind of swanky. He has a desk. So I don't remember the bartender's dude name. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I feel like he's going to get killed or something like that. So should we bother learning his name? But it's weird. They never says his name. He keeps calling it Edward or Ed, whatever, but Edward never says his name. So he says he's got a desk, whatever. And he's like, okay, so not unlike a proper job then. And Edward's like, yeah. And then the dude's like, but the big bucks, they must add to the appeal, right? And Edward's like, they're not that big. Let's not get carried away. So then the guy's like, so it's a stepping stone, and you're a lucky boy. You landed on your feet. And if you're going to be like all rich and famous now, I guess I'd better stick around, eh? And Edward's like, well, that would be nice. Smooch. They lean over. And then the dude's like, I stood outside your door for 10 minutes like a demented superfan. This whole thing would be so much easier if you had a phone, especially since we're, And Edward's like, oh, are we? And the dude's like, and Edward's like, Then he gets up, he goes to his bottom drawer, he takes out some stuff. He's like, I'm not sure if it still works. So it's a phone, I guess. The dude plugs it in, and then you can see it starts charging. He's like, huh. So Edward did have a phone, but is there no service? What's going on? Andrea checks into her hotel, and she has to leave a message with Sharon, and because she said she tried leaving or calling or whatever. But then she's told, it's like, oh, there's some people. The lady at the desk. She's like, there's some people up in his room. She's like, let me go get my manager. Manager brings her up, and she tells there's a couple guys going through Sharon's stuff, his drawers and his suitcase or whatever. She's like, I'm looking for Dr. Nathu. And the manager's says in her language that, they explained to her that, they were in the room. And one asks, is she family? And Andrew's like, where is he? So then she goes outside. She makes a call to Akram. She's like, he's not ill, Akram. You said he was unwell. And he's like, what? And she's like, I shouldn't have let him come here. I should have asked him. I went to his room. The police were there. I just spoke to them. And Akram's like, Andrew, calm down. She's like, what is it? She's like, it's Sharon. He's dead. And they won't tell me anything. So then he's like, stay where you are. I'll meet you at your hotel, okay? So that poor dude, he got killed. And it's like, did he get killed because he went to a gay bar? And to say, I must have missed it, because I thought he went there because they were going to tell him some information, or maybe it was meant to be a hookup. Because, when he went there, the guy's like, oh, you're brave for coming, or something. Or he's like, well, you're brave for asking, or something like that. But say, I thought that was talking about you're brave because they got the security people watching. There's something happening there. But obviously, I don't think he was killed because he was gay. I think there is something else going on. At Kaplar, Edward's in his booth, his work area. Then he looks at the calculations written in the glass in the booth next to his. I could have swore he smudged a little bit at the bottom. It's did he mean to do that, or is he being a jerk? Why would you do that? He sits at the desk. He starts looking at some papers. This lady comes in. She has a plate of food. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, it's oops, busted," because this is her workstation. He's like, "Oh, it's my second day. I was just being neighborly." And obviously she's kind of annoyed because she's like, Nikki, she's and she kind of introduced herself. But it's I would be like, yeah, this is my work stuff. So why are you at my desk? So she goes to her computer, and he's just kind of standing around, and then she kind of eyeballs him, kind of looks at the corner of her eye as she's about to log on. And, then she stops, and she's like, well, what research are you doing? And he's like, algebraic number theory. And he's like, what about you? And she's like, four-dimensional networks, hyperbolic geometry. So she logs onto her desktop. She's about to bite her sandwich, and he's like, is that the archive? And she's like, where we keep our work log. He's like, can I take a look? And she's like, no. It's right, can I take a look? No. And she's like, protocol. She's like, grown-ups would kill me. And he's like, yeah, grown-ups, walls have ears, right? And she just kind of stares at him. He's like, who's funding all this anyways? Or are you not meant to ask? And she just shrugs And then she's about to take a bite in her sandwich again or whatever. And he points to calculations in the glass. He's like, that work on your, and she's like, booth or whatever. He's like, your booth. He's like, what is that? Is some prime geodesics or something like that? And she's like, oh, that's old from weeks ago. He's like, you did that? And she's like, that was my area of research, and he's like, but what? She's like, but they persuaded me to move on. So that's what I did. And Edward's like, persuaded? By what? She's like, let's just say I like my funding. And Edward's like, yeah, you and me both, but he doesn't care. So then he goes to his booth. So she was working on primes, and then because that's what caught his attention, and they told her to stop. So why would they do that when they want Edward, because of his work? So at the French place, the security place, whatever, the suit guy tells the desk lady, I think her name is Jane, that they got a secure call from an unknown number, so they think it's her. That she's like, patch it through, and then she's like, give me the room. So she's like in her whatever thing. And her name is Jane. I think it's Jane Torres. Taylor calls her. She's like, hey, it's me. And she's like, Taylor, thank God, I've been losing my mind here. And Taylor's like, yeah, I know. I should have checked in. And Jane's like, but you're okay, right? You're not hurt? And she's like, yes, I'm fine. And she's like, you sure? And Taylor's like, look, I think I'd know, right? And, she's like, I think I'd know, right, Jane? And she's like, that's my girl. So there's obviously this like connection between Taylor and this, lady in charge. Taylor's like, how's the rest of the unit? Is everyone secure? She's like, what about that new guy, Alex? And, we saw him. So Jane's like, yeah, our agents brought him in. She's like, you did a great job disappearing. Where the hell have you been? And at this point, I'm like, should she be saying anything? Because, she told her Olson what her thoughts, and then Olson supposedly called the higher-ups, and then he gets killed. She's like, I'm in England, Cambridge. And Jane's like, what's in Cambridge? And Taylor's like, there's a research mathematician here who worked with Robert Melinder. And Jane's like, we need to bring you in. We need to debrief you. And she's like, no, Jane, listen, I alerted Syracuse to Robert Melinder for the work that he was doing, okay? And that's what got him killed. And it wasn't even Melinder's work. It's like, it was this guy that I'm with, Edward Brooks. I'm like, oh my goodness, are you serious? You just gave out his name? But I mean, I guess they would probably know anyways. So Jane's like, oh yeah? And Taylor's like, but he used the words like prime finder, and primes are the basis of all and Jane's like, digital security, yeah. So Taylor's like, oh, listen, have you ever heard of this place called the Kaplan Institute? It's a research institute here in Cambridge. And she's like, Taylor? But Taylor continues. She's like, they reached out to him and they're trying to recruit him. And she's like, I just need a few more days to figure all this stuff out. And Jane's like, no, you're in no shape to handle this right now, especially not after what happened. You need to get back here. And Taylor's like, look, Jane, just give me some time, okay? And she's like, Taylor? But then Taylor hung up. So then Jane's phone beeps and she like curses. Screen says, she asks, there's like a text. I'm like, okay, what is she cursing about? It's like, return Amy's call. But then there's a text from Andrew Carter. It's like, boarding flight now. Arrive at CDG tomorrow. So she calls this, the suit guy, I think his name is Tom Grayson, was it? He asks if she's okay, and Jane's, he's asking about Taylor. Jane's like, she's fine. She's like, I gave her 24-hour stress leave. It's like, no, you didn't. And then he's like, she's like, the cavalry arrives tomorrow at Charles de Gaulle, which is like the place, or that's the airport or something like that. In Baghdad at the hotel, Andrew says to Nakram that Sharon was going to be brilliant, and then she sent him out here. So, he's like, the police think that he went to the wrong kind of bar where men go to meet each other. So he's like, if some barbarian said on him, that's the fault of this place, not yours. And she's like, no, it doesn't make sense because he was a very cautious person. And Nakram's like, look, I can have a flight home arranged for you if you prefer, Andrea. And she's like, no, I've waited a lifetime for discovery like this. So she's determined to stay. And so like for Nakram to say that, because the thing when she's like, where's Sharon? And he's like, oh, he's unwell. Why would he say that? I don't think he had any impression that he was not feeling well. So it's weird. It's like, is he involved with something? And then now it almost feels like, is he trying to get rid of her? Trying to say, oh, I'll get you a flight home. In Cambridge this evening, Edward walks like out of the lounge. This lady at the desk asks if he's ready. She's like, you ready to check out? And she's like, you need to show us any work that you've done just for security. So he hands her like some sheets of paper. She like scans them in. And then he's like, the access code to the archives. Do I get one of those, or is it more like a probation thing? The lady's like I said, it takes a few weeks. So no. And back in France, Andrew arrives at the office. Jane and the suit guy go to meet him at the front desk. So he's the guy that I guess texted her that he was coming. So she welcomes him to France. The suit guy goes to shake his hands, but then Andrew's like, thank you. And he leaves like his roller bag with like, he's got a couple of bags there. So he wants him to bring it, whatever, which is kind of rude. In Jane's office, Andrew's like, look at you. She's like, I should move here. You look insanely good, Jane. So he's just like so smug. I don't like this guy. She's like, well, you look like a flight attendant. And, so she sits at her desk. So she's like, to what do I owe this pleasure? And he's like, same as always, I'm here to help. And he takes a bottle out of one of his bags. She's like, you brought wine to France? He's like, it's American wine, 100 horses, Napa Valley, Zinfandel. And trust me, it's better than any of the crap they serve here. It's like, is that true? I thought like France had like actual wine. I mean, I know there's great California wine, but I don't know.
So she's like, oh, we only have paper cups here or something like that. So then Andrew says, the suit guy, this is another thing why I don't like him. He's like, what's your name, son? And he's like, you're not that much older than him, I don't think. So he's like, oh, it's Tom Grayson. And he's like, Tom, will you fetch us some wine glasses? We're not savages. So it's like, what's your name? Go do this menial task for me. And it's like, where is he supposed to get wine glasses from? Is he meant to go out to a shop? Or do they happen to have wine glasses somewhere in the building? I don't know. So then he like opens a bottle. So it's like, is there wine glasses in there? Because if he has to go across town, the glasses are us. So then he's like, you find her yet? And Jane's like, she's in Cambridge. She's with a mathematician, a student of Melinder, Edward Brooks. So now she's telling this dude. It's like, who's this guy? Can we trust these people is my thing. Oh, he's like, what? So you just let her wander into the field? Some kid from surveillance? And Jane's like, she's not some kid. And he's like, I'm well aware of who this child is to you, Jane. So let me guess. She was like her surrogate mother or something like that, or foster mother. It's probably something like that. He's like, all the more reason to bring her in quickly and quietly. So Taylor puts her number in Edward's phone. She tells him to get like the access pass to the archives and call her when he's set. And Edward's just like laying back in his bed. He doesn't say anything. And she's like, we'll be all right. And he finally gets up. He's like, well, if we're in this together, I need to show you something. It's like, this whole thing started when I saw these. And she's like, what is this? So it's the pictures from, the copies of the pictures from Baghdad that Andrea let him take. He's like, a place called Bat al-Hikmah. And he's like, what happened to Robert is somehow connected to this place. And she's like, why are you showing me this now? He's like, how is this significant? He's like, it's about primes. The maths is similar. It's like, it's all connected. My work, Safia's, Bat al-Hikmah, it's out there in Baghdad. He's like, that's where we need to be. And she's like, okay, Ed, but for now, let's just focus on Kepler. And she gives him like this little device. She's like, it should give me control once you have access. He's like, will it work? And she's like, it's worth a shot. He's like, that's reassuring. So it's like, she wants him to hack all this stuff, but it's like, how much security do they have? And he's going in alone. He's not trained to do all this stuff. Back at Kepler, Edward's in his booth. He sees Nikki next to him. She's like packing up. So he goes over and he's like, you leaving? And she's like, just finished for today. And he's like, what's with the chess game? And she's like, no, please don't touch that. And she says that she's playing with a colleague at, I forget where it was. And he sees her, there's a card with the archive login, like somewhere with like the details, like there's this like long username and password. So it's like, is he going to be able to memorize that? Probably, right? So then he's like, 2 games at once, nice. And she's like, yeah, I know, it's a bit, full on. And she's like, it's candidate master or something like that. Then he's like, well, bishop to g4, I would. And she gives him like a disgusted look. She's like, are you high? And she's like, I'd walk right into his Lewis counter. And he's like, I was just testing. So maybe he doesn't know much about chess. So he goes back to his booth, and then he's like working late. Most of the others are leaving. Like the main room is being vacuumed. He puts on headphones just so he could call Taylor like through his phone thing. And she's like, are you good? He's like, I don't know what I'm doing, if that's what you mean by good. And she's like, did you get the login for the archives? He's like, yeah, I memorized it. So he logs on. He's like, okay, I'm looking at it. It's a list of names. And she's like, is there a file for Safia? And he's like, I can't see one, no. And she's like, okay, I need access to the primary drive. He's like, what's the primary drive? So Taylor's like, use the thing I gave you. So he plugs it in. And so she can see it. She starts like typing stuff. Then she curses. She's like, the system is more robust than I thought. It's like, I've got access here, but I can't see your screen. You'll need to be my eyes. So at this point, I was like, is there no security here? I mean, do they not? It's like so-and-so logged into the archives and they're supposed to be watching everything and monitoring all the screens. So it's like, seems kind of crazy. She's like, well, I have to do this by first principles. And he's like, meaning what? She's like, meaning I'll type the instructions and you have to copy and paste them. So she's like, open the hard drive icon on the desktop and select the command line. She's like, paste my code into there. And she's like, wait. She's like, well, he's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. There's a folder here called primes. And she's like, okay, try that. He's like, it won't let me open. Because like when he clicked, the message says, you do not have permission to access this directory. So she's like, if it's locked, there's probably something important hiding inside it. So she tries something else, and he's like, it's not happening. And she's like, okay, what's the operating system? And he's like, and she's like, rolls her eyes. She's like, is there a logo, an extension, anything? Go to the top left and open the system settings. He's like, it says AXI, AXI. And she's like, I know that system, but it's U.S. government only. Software is designed by Axiom. They're a private security firm. She's like, it's a long shot, but if it's AXI, try this. So she gives something. And she's like, well, he's like, hold on, I'm in. And she's like, what? He's like, I think it's a list of people who have looked into primes. Safia's here. He like opens her file. Says she signed a contract too. Signed it in 1994, the same year as Melinder. It says her work was deleted. She's like, deleted? He's like, there's other stuff here too. He clicks a file and there's a video, residence bedroom, Darnell College, Cambridge. So she's at her desk. And so Taylor's like, what stuff? Edward's like, surveillance footage. He's like, clicks and like looks over stuff. Her whole life's in here. And she's like, send me a screenshot. And he's like, how do I do that? So she rolls her eyes again. She's like, alt print screen. Now drag it from the desktop into the Black Widow or whatever, like the thing that she opened up. So she's looking at it. She's like, that's Syracuse. And Edward's like, what? She's like, that's my project, surveilling mathematicians. Safia had the exact same treatment. She's like, how the hell does Kaplan have access to any of this? And then he's like, wait, because he like hears something. So it's like, there's someone there? And she's like, what? He's like, we're fine. But it's like, are they? So he types his name into the search thing, and his file pops up. There's a video of him at Melinder's office, like writing on a chalkboard about that special number or whatever. There's a video from Melinder's dining room, and so Taylor's like, what's happening? So there's video of him and a bartender dude like lying in bed. She's like, Ed, what's going on? He takes off his headset, and then it's like, hi. So the front desk lady comes in, and he quickly closes like the archive stuff. She's like, working late? He's like, yeah, just checking up on some stuff. And so Taylor can hear the call still. So the lady kind of like looks at a screen. He's like, Neil gave me access privileges, so yeah. And she's like, right, okay. Can you just wait here a second? And then he curses. She's like, Ed, what's going on? He's like, poop, poop. He's like, she saw me. Taylor's like, what happened? He's like, my manager, she saw what I was doing. What do I do? She's like, you need to take the drive and get out of there as quick as possible. Now, go. So he goes to the door. He uses the fob to open the door. The first one opens, the lady sees him. She calls out. She's like, Edward. Where? And then she's with a couple dudes. They run towards him. She's like, Ed, stop. Alarm goes off. He runs outside. He gets on his bike. He rides. And a couple guys try running after him, but he's gone. Then at his apartment, he bangs on a smoke detector with his broom. Taylor says that they need to get out of there fast because whoever was watching him was using the exact same systems that they do. And he's like, what are you saying? That Kaplar's NSA? She's like, I don't know what it is. She's like, where's your research? He's like, you saw Melinder destroyed it. And she's like, and you haven't tried to recreate it? He's like, well, I have. I tried, but it doesn't work like that. And this is a good point, and I totally get this because this is like what happens like when I lose a podcast or whatever or anything. He's like, if you wrote War and Peace and someone ripped it up, you can't just crank a handle. She's like, they're hunting us. Then he's like, we leave Cambridge, follow the maths. And Taylor's like, what, to Baghdad? He's like, yeah, that's where the answers are. She's like, Ed, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just texting someone. And she's like, no, who? He's like, Adam. So I guess that's the bartender dude's name. She's like, no, leave it. She's like, they'll track it. Let's go. So I don't know if by leave it, she meant leave his phone, but he takes the phone. They run out. So then she calls a Jane lady in France. It's like, why? I guess because she trusts her so much if she's whatever, but I don't trust her. She's like, I have Brooks with me. We're leaving Cambridge now. And Jane's like, okay, just wait. I'll send one of my team over. And she's like, no, Jane, don't do that. Don't tell anyone. And Jane's like, Taylor, what is it? So Taylor's like, they had everything, all of the Syracuse data. They had access to all of our work, Jane. And she's like, they? And Taylor's like, Kaplar, they're using the Axiom system. There's someone on the inside sharing Syracuse data, someone responsible for all these deaths. Andrew walks into he's such a jerk. He walks in, he's like, hey, he like calls out her name, and he doesn't care that she's on the phone. She motions, I'm like, shh, and like to shut the doors. She's like, look, Jane, we gotta get to Baghdad. And Jane's like, wait, what? She's like, Brooke says there's some archaeological dig that may be the key to all of this. So she's like, Taylor, I'm just trying to get you safe. And Taylor's like, look, we're at the airport. I got to go. And she hangs up. So Andrew in her office, like, what? And here it comes. Jane's like, we have a problem. She's farther ahead than I thought. She knows it's someone on the inside. And that's the end of the 4th episode. Basically, I guess my thing is, like, how can Taylor have no clue or suspicion? I don't understand, because that Olsen, her boss Olsen, he reported the information about Melinda or whatever, and then he was killed the next day. So what does she think, that it was just a coincidence? It just seems weird that he reports this sensitive data that Melinda didn't commit suicide, and then he gets killed. So Kapler has all the data, and this lady is, she's at the top or whatever. Maybe she's known her for a while, but it just seems like a stretch that Taylor would be so naive. But if this lady was like her mom or something like that, I guess she would trust her. But it's just, I don't know. It just seems very, like I said, naive that she's being too trusting. But I guess that's how it goes. Okay, then Harley Quinn, Season 5, Episode 5, Big Pasta Dinner. So basically what happened, I mentioned at the beginning that something happened when I was watching this. Because I'm just so, whatever, always getting behind. I was watching this like Friday afternoon in my classroom. And I'm watching this. And then I started like dozing off. And then I was like, I was like, wait. Red X's in this episode? I'm like, what did I miss? And then I was just kind of watching it, and then I had to end up going back. I was like, I don't have time for this. So, watch it like once and a half time. But this, I don't know what it is. It's like I like the show, but I don't like the show. And I don't know. So here's our brief coverage. And I feel like I have to continue covering it because I have been since the beginning. And I'm assuming that people care. I don't know. I need send out surveys. Like, what shows should I be covering? What shows should I not be covering? I don't know. So Big Pasta Dinner. Ivy's like pruning Frank at their place. And then Harvey starts like sweeping up the trimmings like right away. And Ivy's like confused. And she's like, are you still having those skull dreams or something like that? Because Harley's been dreaming about skulls. And it's like flashing between like skulls and like Brainiac's skull. But, she doesn't know because Brainiac kind of like erased her memories. Doorbell rings. Oh, my goodness. It's friggin' Sean, the shark kid. He's so annoying. So he's there. He's like, I hate my dad, whatever. And he said that he was playing with their cat Mittens and then it disappeared. And his sister says that he ate them. He's like, but I would never eat anything I'm not supposed to. But then, like as he says that, he's like chomping on Frank. And as they're talking, they mention about him going back or something like that. And then all of a sudden he disappears. He's like not there. And the bathroom door busts open. All this like water comes gushing out. And then, because Harley got this like shower head massager thing that's supposed to be like, she got it off the dark web because it's no longer available or something or whatever, and you use it for like doing special things, I guess. And he like spits it out. So it's like, what does that mean? And then Harley calls Bruce Wayne. He's like, go for Bruce. And since Bruce owns the building, she's like, Bruce, our shower's broken. And so she's making a sandwich as she's talking to him, and stupid Sean's like trying to eat everything. So Bruce, he says that he's like, well, I'm getting ready for the party tonight, and she's like, what party's that? He's like, the one you didn't RSVP to, and she's like, oh, it must have got lost in the mail, and he's like, I hand delivered it. But so Alfred is the building manager. He's like out of prison or something like that. So she can talk to him there, whatever, about the shower, whatever. And then it turns out Sean ate her sandwich. It was a peanut butter sandwich, and he's allergic to nuts, so she has to get the EpiPen out. And again, it's like, is that funny that he's so annoying? So she ended up putting him on a leash so he can't, get into trouble. So the party is supposed to be for residents only. There's like no one there, and she's like, "Where is everyone?" He's like, "This is it." I guess some of the other people are like businessmen who don't actually live there. Lois is there, and she's there because Bruce gifted an apartment to Superman, and Damon's he's sitting on a couch like texting on his phone, and he says like Raven can't make it, so I guess Raven's supposed to be his girlfriend, Raven from Teen Titans, right? Bruce says that he only lets people he trusts live there, and then Joker arrives. I think it was his stepdaughter. And I was like, wait, why is he there? Or why is she there? Who got the place? Because she's like an intern for Wayne Enterprise or something like that. And then Joker says that, so they're at this dinner, and it's a big pasta dinner, which is the name of the episode. So there's a big picture. He's like, who's that? In a painting or something like that. Bruce's like, that's my first ward, Dick Grayson. It's like, we used to live here. Sadly, he's been murdered. And, it was Harley who murdered him. She like killed him or whatever. And then he's like, I failed you, my beautiful Dick. And Joker's like, huh? Then he's like, who's this other guy? And he's like, that's Jason Todd. He was also murdered. So it's like, that's not like, doesn't sound too, you don't want to be a ward of Bruce Wayne. Alfred asks, then, when she mentions her shower, he asks if it involved this one, like certain shower head or whatever. Cause then he's like, illegal shower heads avoid the warranty. So she's going to have to deal with it. She's like, you expect me to pay for it myself? She's like, come on, can't you be a pal? And then she's like, if you don't fix it, I'll kill you. Then the lights go out, and Alfred's dead on the ground. There's like a big puddle of blood. Harley has a bloody knife in her hand. And Bruce is like, what's going on? It's like, no one leaves until this, we've solved, like, who did this? And Bruce is like, he's convinced she did it because, she's got the knife and everything like that. And she's like, whatever. So she turns off the light and they run. So they hide in this room. And Sean's like, I know who murdered Alfred and put the knife in your hand. Because he's like, sharks have perfect night vision. But he's like, I couldn't see their face, but all I could see was a big skull. And she's like, skull? She starts getting like flashes again. So Bruce is like in the door. He's like, we're going to find you, Harley. And he says to the others, Alfred's not dead. He does this when he's upset. It's a see what life's like without me thing. So in the room that they're in, Harley finds this like secret tunnel. So they start going in there and blah, blah, blah. She ends up gathering everyone because she's figured out who did it. The tunnels, whoever killed, like went through the tunnel. The tunnels lead to Damien's room. And Bruce laughs. He's like, there was no killer. He's like, Alfred was faking it. The alarm goes off again, and Harley gets like kicked into the tunnel. So this person, it's Red X. He's like, there's about to be a murder. And it's going to be yours, Quinn. So Red X is standing there. And then she sees that his mask is like a skull, like her nightmare. She's like, a skull. And Lois is like, she says to herself, she's like, wait, skull nightmare? So she must be having him too. So Red X, he's like, I don't know how he's doing this. He's like holding his hand. He's like shooting these red X's all over the place. And they like snap onto people's faces and arms and stuff. Like they almost look like Starros, but they're just X's. And so everyone's getting like stapled to the walls, and they're like all trying to fight him. And then he says that he wants Bruce to watch. So he takes off his mask. It's Nightwing. He's alive. So he wants everyone to turn on Harley like she turned on him. He says something, he went through the Lazarus pit. So he's about to kill her, murder her. He's about to stab her eye. And then Bruce yells, he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. And Dick's like, you never apologize. You said apologies are for the weak. And then, they all hug and stuff like that. But then they're like, okay, well, where's Alfred? And then Alfred comes in as the macaroni that like disguise the old timey whatever or revolutionary time costume thing. So Alfred as the macaroni says that he resurrected Dick because he was supposed to kill Joker, Harley, and Ivy. Because he's like, they're the worst villains, everything. He says stuff that they did. And Bruce, then he's like, he says to Alfred, he's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm sorry, Alfred. And Alfred laughs. He's like, your pathetic apology won't work on me. And because he's like mad at Bruce because Bruce doesn't even know his last name because he keeps calling him Alfred Butler. He's like, it's Alfred Butler. He's like, no, it's Pennyworth. So then he's like, there's only one last thing to do. And he puts some venom in him and he like roids out. They're like fighting and he's like smashing the place, throwing like pianos and at them and chunks of marble and all this. So they're like, we have to make him sweat the venom out. So they're like, how are we going to do that? And there was a mention of like a sauna before. So they have to get him to go there. blah, blah, blah. They end up in the shower, and Harley notices like there's like all these shower heads there, like that they're not supposed to have. So it's like, use the shower heads on him, and it makes him like turn back to normal. But then the last bit is something like Lois is talking to Harley, and she's like, if she wants a job, she can be her assistant at the Daily Planet. And Ivy's like, she's got a PhD or whatever. She's like psychiatric. But then Lois says that because they need to figure out why both of them are having dreams about skulls. So Harley's going to be at the Daily Planet. Carrying over from before, Lois complains that things suck at the Daily Planet because she's covering like some student drama play or musical instead of like actually doing, because Two-Face is posing as Perry White. So he's still in control, I guess. So that was it. That was the episode. And it's just like, I feel like, there's always been a lot of potential, but it's just, I don't know. And so many times I'm like, well, maybe I don't cover it anymore. But, and part of me is like, well, this is probably the last season, but then there's another season. And I'm not saying I want it to end, because I don't know. But that was Harley Quinn. All right, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. My friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? We're going to look at episode 5 and 6. So now 6, 7, 8, I think, are out. No, up to 8. So now I'm 2 episodes behind. I can't handle this. Going back to last week, when Harry sees he's like, "You're Spider-Man?" And did he see any reports that Spider-Man has a white suit? Because Peter and Norman could just say, "Oh, he's just testing something out," because he's an intern there, but whatever. It cuts back to like Otto talking to, he's like, "Ms. Masaryk, Mila, whatever." He's like, "It's a pleasure to meet you, and you're right on time." So she's like a little hesitant. She's like, "You are the man selling weapons?" And he's like, "Weapons? No, my dear. I sell enhancement that assist hardworking individuals like yourself and your accomplice. Speaking of which, I'm surprised to see that you've come alone." And she's like, "Yes, I know we discussed getting enhancements for myself and my friends, but they've recently been incarcerated." He's like, "I'm thinking, instead of buying 4 pieces of tech, you could sell me one that will allow me to free them." And Otto's like, "Of course, if you have the appropriate funds, that is." So she just like drops a big duffel bag of cash, and he like smiles. He brings her, it's kind of like this big storage room. He's like, "Impressive, right?" So there's like, I guess, a bunch of tech in there. And she's like, "I was expecting a bit more than a warehouse full of scrap metal." And Otto's like, "Oh yes." He's like, "I'm sure there were those that questioned Da Vinci when he began to create masterpieces in a shack." So he says that, he would like better accommodations. Her donation should help. And he gives her this helmet and says that should be enough to get her associates out. It detects movement patterns. So obviously that's going to be used on Spider-Man, right? It also fires lasers. And she's like, "Any questions? Consult the user manual." So she takes it. She goes outside. She looks at the manual. She just drops it in a trash can. Inside, Otto's frustrated. He's like, with all this, all the people, the situation, they're beneath him. His assistant, Vincent, he's like, "Oh, you're almost there." He's like, "Soon, we'll have everything we need to show the world the things that true genius is capable of." Otto says that soon enough is never soon enough. His name should be held in higher regard than Stark, Banner, and Osborn. Vincent says that it will. So he puts the money in the secure room, and it looks like there's like other big like piles of cash on the shelves and other stuff in there. Peter's awkwardly sitting across from Harry in like Osborn's conference room. They both like start talking at the same time. Then Norman comes in, says that he's happy he stopped by on the way to school. He says that he gave a lot of thought over what happened. So he figures the only solution is for Harry to join Team Spider-Man. And they're both like, "What?" So he says there will be times where he'll be unavailable to assist Peter. He's like, that's where Harry comes in. He's like, he may be only 15, and Harry's like, 16. And Norman's just like, "But I've raised him to be quite a responsible young man. He could be your..." And then Harry's like, "Dude at the desk." And Norman's like, "Not how I would put it, but sure." And Harry's like, "This would be awesome. Me helping Spider-Man save the city." And Peter's like, he's like, "I don't really know about this, Mr. Osborn. I mean, no offense, but I barely know Harry." And Norman gets a call. He's needed for his investor meeting. So Harry has to ask Peter, he's like, what was your name again? So Peter says that he'd better go before he's late for school again. And Harry's like, you need a ride? So he drives him in his red sports car. When they pull up, kids are like, who drives that car? Who's that? Is that Harry Osborn? And Harry's like, see you after school. So in class, Nico's like, are you kidding me? And Peter's like, I know, I'm on time for once. He's like, I can barely believe it myself. And she's like, not that. You're hanging out with Harry Osborn? Everyone's talking about it, even the teachers. So out in the hall, there's like a couple teachers. One's like, there he is. He's like, I'm going to wave. And he waves, and Peter like awkwardly waves back. Peter says, he's not sure why. Nico says, he's a social media celebrity. Peter's like, I just know him as Mr. Osborn's son. So Nico's like, in addition to being a vapid pretty boy, he's the heir to a big business, tycoon. He'll probably pursue political path in 20 years from now, and of course he'll win, and she'll have no choice but to join the revolution, against him. So Peter's like, you've clearly put a lot of thought into this. Here's a question for you. If you believe Harry's so bad, why are you following him, like on Instagram or whatever? And she's like, chuckles nervously. Oh, obviously I'm following him ironically. And she says that, she's just saying he's been hanging out with a lot of people. Peter has juniors, seniors, billionaires. So she wants to make sure that he's still making time for himself. Meanwhile, Coach talks to Lincoln in the locker room, says that he doesn't know what's going on. He's good, but he can't justify letting him skip practice. He's the team captain. And Lonnie's like, oh, I had some personal things going on. And Coach is like, I get that, but this is just football. He's like, you have the chance to go pro. He's like, don't throw it all away now. So Lonnie's phone vibrates. It's Big Don. He just ignores the call. So he goes out in the hall. Pearl's like trying to listen in. And then, he's like, well, I don't really want to talk about it. He's like, but I do want to walk you to class. So she says that she and Pete have been covering for him. So he might want to pretend that he has bronchitis. He's like, well, how's this? Is this okay? Nico talks to Peter about the Avengers, who knows what they're going to do now. And she says that, she's not a Tony Stark fan, but she can't say that Captain America is totally in the right either. So maybe superhero people should have to register for everyone's safety. And she's like imagine if me and you got superpower or super suits and went around causing collateral damage and punching people. So Peter is just like glued to his phone, and he's like, that would be weird. She's like, what's more weird? You ignore me when I mention Captain America, even though he's like your Messiah. And he says that he was actually booking tickets for some like obscure movie thing, whatever, for tonight. And she's like, if you're joking, I'll throw you into orbit. And he's like, no, one of the art house theaters got an unreleased copy somehow. He's like, you in? And she's like, to watch a sequel to the best, worst B movie of all time on a big screen? Of course I'm in. So other players give Lonnie a hard time about finally returning to practice. There's even like a missing like printout like on his locker with his picture. He's like, haha, funny. He just like crumples it up. Then his phone buzzes again. And so, this is going to be good. He answers it. Answer a question for me, superstar. I texted you earlier to get to the hideout ASAP. So why is it you ain't here? And Lonnie's like, look, man, my coach is all in my... I don't really care about your excuse. The Scorpions are on our turf. So I need every member to 1/10 here, now. And he's like, what? I'm at school, man. Football practice, even if I left now, it would take me a while to get back to Harlem. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's why I sent Bulldozer to pick you up. Him and some of the boys are parked right outside right now. So he like looks, sees them out there. Then behind him, Coach yells, joining us today, Lincoln? And he's like, oh yeah, Coach. He's like, 1 minute. And he's like, just dealing with some family stuff, And he's like, okay, but I want you on that field in 60 seconds. So back on the phone, Lonnie's like, I can't keep skipping out on practice. I'm going to get kicked off the team. And Big Don's like, I'm sorry, I missed a part where that was my problem. You signed up for this, Lincoln. Now I suggest you go outside and meet Dozer before I send him in to meet you. And he's like, fine, I'm on my way. So Peter webs up his backpack, but it's like 4 feet off the ground in this alley. So he's in a new suit. He starts climbing up the wall, and he gets startled because Harry comes on a cop. So how was the first day of school, Mr. Spider-Man? And Spider-Man, Peter, is like, were you seriously waiting for me to turn the comms on? He's like, I'm going to be completely honest. I most definitely was. I was so bored, dude. And Spider-Man's like, bored? He's like, don't you have like millions of adoring fans to respond to? And Harry's like, 90% of my DMs are people asking me, how did you get rich? It's not much conversation besides, I was born. So then Peter's like, what about school? And Harry mentions that, he's homeschooled, he has the smartest instructors money can buy, according, that's what his dad likes to say. He's a quick learner, so that frees up his day a bit. He says that his first few years were a blast, but then you realize that, all your old friends are busy at school and your new ones are just using you for clout or are spam bots. Then he says, since they're sharing, what's up with the suit? And Peter's like, what, you don't like it? And Harry's like, I mean, it's a bit, and Peter's like, sterile? And Harry's like, honestly, it could use a lot more color. And Peter's like, I know, I would like more red and blue, and they both like Captain America. And Peter's like, you're a Cap fan too? I was like, I thought everyone was turning on him now. And Harry's like, no way, man. It's like, so he broke a few laws to help his best friend. Who wouldn't? Besides, I read online, the real Cap died 4 years ago, and that his clone has been doing all of this. And Peter's like, for sure. It's like, wait, what? So a lot of times it seems like he just quickly agrees with something, and then he's like, wait, huh? Then we see like a prison, like a little jail, whatever. Mila, she blasts into it. The big muscle dude, what's his name, Mikhail, in his cell, and she tells him that she's like, I told you I'd be back for you, and he's like, I believed you, but Dmitri and Roxana may need convincing. And Mila's like, I believe they are convinced. So they're already outside. She already broke them out. Then a few police cars, squad cars pull up, and they're like, freeze, get on the ground. So Mila zaps the corner of a building, and it falls on a police car. Then Roxana says that she likes to attack the helmet because there's a little kind of bump in the front. She said it makes her look like a rhino, and Mila is like, no, it's like I think it's more like a unicorn. So Dmitri wants to focus more on escaping, and Mila wants to have a little fun. So she puts the helmet back on, and she blasts again, and she's laughing. So she's kind of getting high into power. Spider-Man webs a guy who stole a bike, and webs into a phone pole or a street light. And Harry's like, well, what are you gonna do with the bike now? And Spider-Man's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know if I can just leave a note and maybe trust the honor system. Then Harry's like, forget the bike, there's a jailbreak. He's like, I'm uploading GPS coordinates to your suit. And Spider-Man's like, you can do that? It's like, that would be so useful, especially when swinging at night. And Harry's like, just get over there now. So he gets there. So she's about to shoot this cop who's running away. She targets him in the back, but then Spider-Man webs him, pulls him away. So he tells Mila, maybe some yoga or anger management classes would help with the firing lasers from your forehead thing that you have going on. So she keeps firing at him. He's dodging. It's impressive considering he doesn't have spider senses, right? I still don't understand the decision. He tries kicking at her, but she's able to grab him and throw him. So it's probably that fight pattern detection thing, whatever. So Dimitri's like, we should leave before the spider notices them. The other, Mikhail, doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to abandon her, even though she abandoned them in the first place. Lonnie and Dozer show up, and Big Don says it's about time. And it looks like they're all ready to rumble. They're all standing there. Scorpions are standing in a line in front of them. Gargan steps forward and says that he's surprised they actually showed up. The streets were saying that all the 1/10 was all talk. A bunch of nobodies led by the biggest nobody of all. So they're basically coming over there to mark their territory. And Big Don's like, your territory? And he scoffs. He's like, I heard your butt is crazy, Gargan, but we both know this is 1/10 turf. And he's like, oh, is it? Because from where I'm standing, this is moving day. Big Don says that he has 3 seconds to get his butt off his turf, or it'll be the last place he ever stands. Gargan's like, 3 seconds? 3, 2, 1. Snaps his fingers. Scorpions charge. The gangs, they start running towards each other. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is taking some hits. Mila is like, why don't you just give up? Lonnie is just standing around where everyone's fighting around him. Then Gargan pulls out this knife. He heads towards Big Don. Spider-Man asks Harry if he's found out anything on Mila, and he's like, no, just that she's referred to as physically gifted athlete. Spider-Man then asks if he's sure she's not a distant relative of the Hulk, And Harry's like, must be the helmet. It's like the other villains that he fought had little upgrades too. So she says that she's tired of playing this game. Perhaps she should find a new playmate. And she blasts like at the crowd, and it like upturns some cars. And Spidey like webs it before it can fall on some people. Then while he's helping some others, she like punches him. So Spidey's trying to get everyone to clear the area. Then she calls out to Mikhail, and she's powered up, and she tells him to like watch this or something like that. Lonnie, he's like, Don, watch out. And then Mila, so she called Mikhail, and then she targets him and she fires at him. And it's like, wait, what? So Spider-Man's like, no, and he like tries to block. Lonnie, meanwhile, tackles Gargan. He had got stabbed in the shoulder or like in the arm, and Gargan tells like big mistake, and he gives him like an uppercut, like psh, hits him in the jaw, and then he takes a knife. He tells Lonnie that he's about to end him, but then Carmilla, she tells Gargan, she's like, we don't have time for him, because there's like police on it, you hear sirens. So Gargan drops Lonnie, and he's like, this ain't over. Dozer helps Lonnie up, and then they're like, we got to go, and they like run out of like the parking lot that they're in. Mikhail gets up, shoves Spider-Man off him, and Spider-Man's like toasted, and he's unconscious. So Harry's like trying to calm him, like, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Mila walks up, and she's like, looks like I win. So Mikhail asks, he's like, what the hell was that? He's like, I'd be dead if not for this bug. What were you thinking? And she says that the spider's foolish morals meant that he would save him. And he's like, you would gamble with my life to prove a point? So she tells him to get over himself. And she picks Spider-Man up, and she gives him like this bear hug. He's like groaning in pain. So it's like, farewell, little spider. She starts powering up the helmet, so she's going to blast him like, head on. Somehow she's powering it up automatically, because she's always had like turn a dial or just like that. I don't know, whatever. Mikhail grunts and then pulls the helmet off her head, and it like the blast goes off, but it goes up in the sky. So she drops Spider-Man, and Mila starts like yelling at him, like, what are you doing? He says that he's stopping her. The longer they linger there, the more likely that Iron Man or his friends will appear. She calls him a fool. The only reason he's not in a cell right now is because of her. And, he doesn't call the shots. She does. So he would do well to remember that. Then a helicopter shines a light down. She grabs the helmet back and starts to put it on, but then Spider-Man yanks it away with the web. It's like, you shouldn't have. It's like, I didn't get you anything. Oh, wait, here. He hits her with like, it must be like impact webbing, because she goes flying back. It's webbed to a car, and then he shoots a little glob at her mouth, and he tells Mikhail, he's like, thanks for your help. And he's like, you may have saved my life, but do not speak to me as if we are friends. Thanks to you, now Mila and I will both rot in cells. So a cop takes a helmet. Another cop puts cuffs on Mikhail. So he starts walking, and he's like, consider us even, Bug. But if you are ever unfortunate enough to cross my path again, all the web you can spin will not be enough to restrain me from ending your existence. And Spider-Man's like, oh, okay, that's a lot. He swings away, and he's like rests on like top of a bus. Harry's like, are you still alive? And Peter's like, can I swing by and sleep on your dad's couch? And Harry's like, of course. But he's like, I don't know how you do it after a day of school. And Peter's like, it's not easy. Usually I'm getting pulled in so many directions, I make mistakes. He's like, oh crap, I'm supposed to meet my friend at the movies. So he almost forgot about Nico. So Nico's standing outside the theater, wondering where he is. She looks at her phone, it's 7:01. He finally comes up. He's like, Nico. And she's like, finally, Pete. It's like, what happened to your face? Because he's got like some bruises on there. And he's like, oh, you know how cartoons people slip on banana peels? He's like, oh, well, life imitates art. So she says that she's glad that he's okay. And she's like, I can't lie. I thought you were going to ditch me again. Peter's like, not a chance. You're stuck with me. Then Harry walks up. He's like, sorry about the wait. It's a nightmare finding parking around here. And he's like, so Nico's like, oh, thanks for letting me crash into the movie. Oh, and nice to meet you, Nico. He extends his hand, and she just kind of like looks at his hand, doesn't shake it. He's like, okay. He's like, I'm starving. I'll meet you guys in the concession stand. Peter's like, I hope it's cool that I invited Harry. He was nice enough to give me a ride, and it seemed like he was just going to have a lonely night at home. And she's like, oh, yeah, it just took me a surprise for a second. It's no problem at all. It was like, obviously it is. So Peter's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. He's like, well, we should grab some snacks. Like, my treat. He goes in, and she's just like, it's fine. But it's not. It's like, didn't he also pay for her ticket? He bought them online. And so I guess she doesn't want Peter to have any other friends, which is whatever, selfish. At the 110 whatever hideout warehouse, Lonnie is like brought in, and he's like, what'd I do this time? Big Don's like, besides be a human pincushion, you saved my ass. That's what you did. So he tells the others, he's like, you should have seen it. He's like, I was punching scorpions like I do, and Gargan grabbed the knife. He was about to sneak up on me when Lonnie tackled him like he was in NFL. So he also like, yeah, they're like cheering. Then he's like, I had my doubts about you, superstar, but tonight you proved where your loyalties lie. You're a certified 1/10. And Lonnie's like, well, if that's the case, I need a favor. I need you to stop calling me superstar, man, because I hate it. Big Don laughs. He's like, deal. And Dozer's like, the way you buried Gargan, we should call you Gravedigger. And he's like, nah, we should call you Tombstone. It's like, wait, what? I guess because he ended him, or I guess. Lonnie's like, Tombstone? I can't lie, I kind of like it. So that's how he gets the name here. Season 1, Episode 6, Duel with the Devil. So at school, history class, Peter's like, Nico, because she's like 2 seats in front of him. He gets a kid, he's like, hey, can you get Nico? He's like, what? No. And he's like, I don't even know you. And he's like, hey, I'm Peter, nice to meet you. Can you get her? And then the teacher's like, is there a problem, whatever? So she's like, 2, you see me after class. The other kid gets mad. So after class, it's just Peter talking to the teacher. And she says that he has to focus up. She's like, I'd hate to see another student placed on probation after, well, you probably already know. And Peter starts walking out. It's like, yeah. And he's like, he pauses, like, wait, what do I already know? So Cloach is clearing out Lonnie's locker and tells him, he's like, I hate having to do this, but I warned you. And then he tries to shake his hand, but Lonnie just sighs and he walks out of the locker room with his stuff. Pearl is like out by her locker. She's like, so you're just done with the team then? And Lonnie's like, according to Coach, I am. And he just keeps walking, and she like kind of gets in front of him. She's like, that's all you're gonna say? And she scoffs. She's like, you don't have to explain yourself to him, but I think I'm owed something as someone you supposedly care about. He's like, Pearl, I do care about you. Then she's like, then where have you been, Lon? Skipping games, class? And he says that he had to make a decision for his family, because they come first. They still need him. This place obviously doesn't. She says that, nothing's been the same since she drove him home. And she's like, there's more to it than this. Just talk to me. Maybe I can help. And he's like, no, you can't. And he's like, it's also a relief not to have to live up to everyone's standards around here. So Peter's, he's by Nico's locker. And he's like, are you mad at me? And she's like, of course not. He's like, then why were you ignoring me in class? And she's like, because we have a huge history test coming up and I don't want to fail it. He says that he guesses that makes sense. She says that, he doesn't have to be paranoid. She says that, she's always honest with him, just like she expects that he is with her. Obviously, he's not. Peter says, he's like, oh, honestly, I thought that you might be upset that I invited Harry to the movies without talking to you first. And she's like, oh, that? Nah, it's cool, Pete. I mean, a heads up next time would be nice, but no sweat. It's like, what's that matter? It just seems weird. He's like, okay, great. Heads up, I want all 3 of us to hang out again tonight at my house. And she like kind of stops in her tracks. She's like, I don't know about that, Pete. I see enough of him online. But Peter's like, if you hung out with him more, you'd see that you would like him. And she's like, how do you figure that? And I actually like this part, because it's math. He's like, transitive property. If Peter plus Nico equals friendship, and Peter plus Harry also equals friendship, then theoretically, Nico plus Harry should equal friendship too. And she kind of chuckles. She's like, okay, I get it. It's like, if you stop doing algebra with our names, she's like, I'll go. In science, the teacher asks Peter, is like, no Lincoln again? And he just shakes his head. And the teacher's like, you need a partner. It's like, join up with Pearl and Emma. So Pearl is just like sad and quiet. Emma is just like taking selfies, and she doesn't even notice Peter like sits like in between them. So he whispers like, you know what's going on with Lonnie? And she's like, huh? She's like, who knows? One week he's, it's all going great, and the next he can't be bothered to tell me what's really going on. Well, forget him. Forget that. So like, let's just do our lab work. And then Emma, she's like, she's still taking pictures. She's like, who are you? Lonnie comes home. His parents are like, oh, you're home early, and he's like, yeah, I caught an early train, and practice was canceled. So then they're going to go do something, and Dre's at the top of the stairs when Lonnie starts going up to his room, and he's like, I'm supposed to be the screw up, not you. And Lonnie's like, he asked him if he's like, you think I like lying to them? He's like, it's not like I can explain. I twisted my life up for the 1/10. And he like scoffs, Dre scoffs. He's like, all to save me? And Lonnie's like, yeah, try being a little more grateful. And Dre's like, man, it was the wrong call. I've always had less to lose than you. That's why I started rolling with those guys in the first place. I just wanted a place to feel useful, a place where people didn't know me as your little brother. But you went and took that too, huh? And Lonnie's like, leave it, Dre. It's like, what's done is done. Dre like scoffs. He's like, but it's not done, Lonnie. You can't hide what you're doing forever. You think mom and dad aren't going to ask questions at graduation, ready to take pictures, and you're not there? So Lonnie just turns around, like, goes down the stairs to the front door. And Dre's like, where are you going now? He's like, anywhere you're not. There was something out in the street that I was like, does this matter? It comes up later. Peter talks to Harry about tonight going to his place, and Harry's like, well, I'm not sure, am I going to be a third wheel? And then Norman comes in a suit, so he's headed out. Harry goes to get something, and then the doors like to the stairs open up. It's Jean. So Peter's like, what, Jean? He's like, you're not supposed to be up here. And she's like, well, why are you here then? And he says that he's friends with Harry, and he gave him like special access, but otherwise no one's supposed to be on this floor. And she's like, And then Harry starts coming back. She's like, guess I didn't realize that. Catch you later, Skeeter. And it seems silly that there's no lock or security on the door, that she was able just to come in. So I don't trust her. At Peter's made like pizza rolls and like guac. She's like, I found it in the back of the fridge, so just a warning. She says that she set up Ben's old VCR, and she has a box of movies, and she's like, I put the R-rated movies you definitely should not watch on top of the box. So she's headed out too, and then Harry's like, what kind of caviar is this? And they're like, it's raisins. And he's like, I've never had them before. He's like, I need that recipe. So he tells Peter that his mom's a great cook, and Peter's like, thanks, but she's actually my aunt. My mom passed when I was little. And Harry's like, yeah, my mom's not around either. And Nico doesn't say anything. So Peter's like, Nico actually lives with foster parents, so we all connect. Huh? And Nico's like, it's not exactly an icebreaker moment. So Peter suggests they watch a movie. Harry and Nico both pick like different ones. So each tries to say, he's like, oh, no, we should watch that one. They're trying to say you should watch the ones that the other picked. So Peter says that Harry wants an action movie. Nico wants a horror story. He's like, it's okay. He's like, we have Predator. Nico grabs it to put it in. She puts she doesn't know what VCR is. She puts it in, and the tape kind of like, pulls in. And she like freaks out. She's like, whoa, what happened? She's like, I think it tried to, bite me or something like that. Or Harry said that. Someone said that. So Peter laughs himself, and he's like watching him. Then his phone buzzes. It's a text from Dr. Connors. Latest specs on a device are exceeding expectations. Good job, Peter. So he starts texting back, and Harry turns and says that, he's going to have to explain how to. So they see that he's oblivious to them. And he's like texting. Nico's like, is everything all right? And he's like, oh, what? This is nothing. So he puts the phone on the counter. So big dinner event. Norman's sitting there at a table. So he gets like honored and thanks for his disaster relief effort to some other country. I think it's not Sokovia, but because they have the Sokovia Accords. But I don't know if they said Lagos. So I don't know if the Avengers were involved, whatever. But then they're panning across the room, they mention Eleanor Bishop. They don't show her, but it's Kate Bishop's mom. They're like, Eleanor Bishop Security, Oliver Kingsworth. So then Norman gets up. He sees Secretary Ross, so Thaddeus, Thunderbolt Ross. He asks Norman if he's enjoying the party, and Norman's like, the bacon wraps were well worth the $100,000 check that I cut for the cause. So Ross says, like, pretty soon they won't have to rely on like donations from like those from him. He's like, now that the Sokovia Accords are in effect, they don't have to worry about this stuff, the disasters, whatever. Norman says that they both know that not everyone has fallen in with the Accords, because he's like, how is the search for Steve Rogers going? And Ross like chuckles. He's like, that's classified, of course, and above your substantial pay grade. Norman says that anything Oscorp can do to help, even with bringing in rogue Avengers, he's like, and in the interest of transparency, you should know we have recently been deploying a superhuman asset of our own here in New York City. And it's like, wait, Norman, what are you doing? So he shows his phone, and there's like kind of like Spider-Man schematics on there. So Ross is like, that's so. And Norman's like, Spider-Man, obviously, I'm more than happy to cooperate with registration, but what I provide must remain classified, proprietary secrets. And Ross is like, oh, we can keep this quiet as long as you're willing to sign on behalf of this John Gallo. So I don't know if there was like a fake name on there. So it's like, Norman, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm glad we could come to an understanding. I have big plans to expand on this project. It's like, what does that mean? How are you going to expand on Spider-Man? And he's just providing a suit. Peter still has the powers. Norman's phone starts to like flash, office security breach. So Ross is like, you might want to start with security situations for your own building. And so Norman looks at it, he's like, I'll look into that. Peter, Nico, and Harry, they're like, at first it's like they're playing Monopoly, because Nico's like, no, you have to roll doubles to get out of jail. But then there's like, he's like, what? Wait, you're stuck in the swamp jungle or something. So they're playing like multiple games, and Nico's like, or someone said it would be, it's more fun to play all the games at once. And Harry's like, I thought I was up in the lead, but then his phone rings. It's Norman. He's like, put Peter on the phone. So Norman tells him there's been a breach reported at the crown floor at Oscorp Towers. On-site security is not responding, so he needs him to suit up and investigate. And Peter's like, I thought you said this was like a night off, because we kind of started to... And he's like, Peter, this will be quick. I just need you to ensure Oscorp is not compromised. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. He's like, right. He talks to the others. He's like, oh, he was just asking me my opinion on some Oscorp stuff. Like, he was thinking of changing the company name to Osmart. And I was like, nah, I think it's good how it is. He's like, oh, but then I noticed we're out of soda, so I'm just going to run and get some. Harry and Nico both get up there like, I'll go too. And he's like, no, that's fine. You guys stay here. He's like, and keep an eye on the apartment. Lonnie steps out of a convenience store. So there was this green car when he stepped out. At first I was like, is this just background, whatever? So it's the same green car, right? It is. So it starts, he turns down like around the corner. The car turns around the corner. The window rolls down just a bit. It's Carmilla. Lonnie starts running. She follows. Then he gets grabbed by Dozer, like, and someone else. They pull him into this alley. She drives by. They like take off, but then she like kind of backs up, so she knows where they went. Spidey swings to Oscorp. There's like a big hole sliced in the window. So at first I'm like, Black Cat? There's a security guard on the floor. Someone like kind of runs by. We see it, but I don't think Spider-Man does, because of course he has no spider sense. So he checks the security guard. I think it was a woman security guard. I could be wrong, because whoever it is out cold. Harry and Nico are like sitting and watching a movie. Then they both start talking at the same time. And Nico says that she wondered what's taking Pete so long. And she's like, I'll call him. But then Harry sees tarot cards in her jacket. He's like, yo, are those tarot? And she's like, huh? Yeah, you know what that is? He's like, totally. I'm actually super into that type of spiritual stuff. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, check it out. He shows like one of his earrings. I think there's like a jewel on there. He's like, this is lapis lazuli. He's like, look. And she's like, I could give you a reading if you want. He's like, dude, let's do it. Read me. Spider-Man looks at the computer on Norman's like screen. It's like access denied. So maybe someone's trying to access files. Then he noticed someone like runs out the door, like into the hall. So he goes it's actually a door to the stairwell, I guess. He goes out there. He sees like the door, like a floor up to the roof. Like it closes. So he uses webs, like flings himself up there, kind of like a slingshot, kicks the door open, gets ready to shoot his webbing. He's like, stop right there. And there's someone standing at the ledge in the shadows. Closed caption says, John Pasano and Braden Kimball's Daredevil main title plays. So it's Daredevil. And the other thing also, like before this, I had paused it and went to like the screen episode menu, and they showed Daredevil on there. So it's like they kind of, obviously it's Devil's in the title, but I didn't know he was going to be in this until I saw it. It's like, oh, Daredevil must be coming up. So he's like, don't mind me, I was just leaving. And Peter's like, so soon? We were just getting to know each other. He's like, hang out for a while. So he webs his foot, which kind of like surprises Daredevil. He's like, huh? He's like, this stuff is sticky. And Spider-Man's like, yeah, it's web. I'm a spider. It's kind of my thing. Isn't it obvious? And Daredevil's like, not from my perspective, because he's blind, I guess. So he manages to pry the webbing off with one of his billy clubs or whatever. And then he's like, but I'll make a mental note of it. So Spidey shoots another shot, another webbing, and his like Daredevil's like radar sense goes up. So he kind of just moves, so it just barely misses like on his right side. Another shot goes like on his left side. So he's just like dodging. And Spider-Man's like, what? It's like, I guess you saw that coming. And he's like, not quite. So they start fighting. Like Daredevil kicks him back. There's like the web. Spider-Man shoots a web, hits the billy club. Daredevil like pulls Spider-Man closer. He falls back, uses his foot to kind of like fling him over. So they're fighting. They end up like up on a helicopter because there's like a helipad on there. They're like fighting on the helicopter blades. Spider-Man, then he like dodges something, ends up going on this big antenna. He's like, whoa, we're so high up. He's like, definitely, top 5 battle for me. He's like, what about you? And Daredevil's like, I don't really keep track, kid, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Spidey swings down, but Daredevil like blocks. He's like, Spider-Man's like, you're really good at fighting. And Daredevil's like, thanks, you're not. And he's like, whatever. It's like, I'm definitely getting better. And if I catch an actual devil, and he shoots like a bunch of webbing, and Daredevil like dodges it. Like, choo, 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 choo. He's like, that's got to make me like the greatest crime fighter of all time. And Daredevil's like, I can tell you're young. You're trying to do the right thing, but this isn't it. And Peter's like, you really trying to lecture me on what's right and wrong when you're dressed like that? And Daredevil's like, I'm trying to help you understand what's really going on. Osborn is hiding something. And Peter's like, everyone's hiding something, including you. Or did you forget you're wearing a mask? He charges at Daredevil, but then Daredevil flings a billy club, bling, 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 and like bounces off the helicopter, off the wall, like a heating duct or whatever, and then hits him in the back of the head. Like, again, no spider sense, so he's out. And he's like, sweet dreams, kid. So Spider-Man's knocked out. He could easily take off his mask or whatever, but he doesn't. So Nico's doing the tarot reading, and she's like, the devil means you must contend with the darker forces that hold you back. And then Harry's like, okay. He's like, am I supposed to flip another card and try to find a match? And she's like, what? She's like, I thought you were into this stuff. And he's like, I am, like as a fashion accessory. I don't actually believe in it. And she's like, forget it. She scoops up all the cards. He's like, look, sorry, Nico. I really appreciate you giving me a chance here. I don't make a lot of friends, okay? It's lucky I even met Peter. And she's like, yeah, Peter's great. That's why we're best friends. He's like, I know, and I think that's awesome because Peter's so awesome. So you two probably have like an awesome friendship. And she's like, actually, we do. So she's getting so snotty and I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, and I'm not trying to come between that at all. And she's like, don't worry, you can't. Pete and I have each other's backs. It's been like that since day one. It's like day one. It's been like that day one of the school year because they've only known each other since the big first episode. And Harry's like, yeah, I can totally tell. And she's like, we're a dynamic duo, we tell each other everything. And he's like, everything? Even And Nico's like, no, what? And he's like, Peter's secret? And she's like, his secret? Yeah, all of them. He's like, you'll have to be more specific. He's like, Peter's, And then it cuts to the next scene. Peter like sits up and there's like security guards standing over him. So Norman, I guess this guy's name is Gallo. He's like, put Spider-Man on the phone. He's like, give me a sit rep. And Spider-Man's like, okay, what's a sit rep? And Norman's like, tell me what happened. He's like, oh, right. Well, it was a break-in. There was this guy dressed like a devil, and he said you were hiding something. And Norman's like, stay there. We'll talk this out in person. Spider-Man's like, wait, Mr. Osborn, I can't. Nico and Harry are waiting for it. He's like, I'm pulling into the garage now. Just wait. I'll be up shortly, and I'll explain everything. So why is he being so defensive? In his office, Peter sits with his mask off, and Norman's at his desk. He's like, I know what the thief must have been after. I've been doing research on the devices you've encountered on those criminals. And Peter's like, you have? Since when? And he's like, since I first saw them and had a suspicion about where they came from. He turns the computer screen around, and there's a picture of, like, it's from the past. It's like him and Otto, like, in the middle, and there's two other people, like, on either side, like, in the lab. He's like, Otto Octavius. And Peter's like, who's that? Norman's like, a gifted scientist, not unlike you, Peter. He's a mind with unlimited potential and unlimited vision as well. I brought him into the fold at Oscorp years ago because I believed in him and his ideas. He was great for the company. And Peter's like, if he's so great, why is he turning every crook in New York City into walking weapons? Because he could never quite get over himself. Otto hated sharing recognition with me for what we accomplished at Oscorp. After everything we'd been through, he stole the projects we worked on together and took them underground. And he's like, this is a modular smart alloy that we're developing to protect U.S. soldiers. And he's like, you encountered it being used on that young woman's arm blades at that jewelry heist. Peter's like, this could have been revolutionary, and he's just repurposing it and giving it away? Norman's like, it's shameful he's been reduced to, all because of his own arrogance. He probably believes the world owes him something for his brilliance, money, fame, respect. Even if he got all three, I don't think he'd be happy. So Peter's like, if we stop Octavius, we stop his designs from getting into the wrong hands. He's like, I wish I'd known this sooner. And Norman's like, I couldn't put the blame on Otto until I knew for sure it was him. But now that he sent the devil to try to dig into my files on him, there's no question. So he's like, are you sure they're working together? Because the guy I fought tonight wasn't like the others. He was trained and smart and didn't rely on some gimmick piece of tech. And Norman's like, sounds like a professional. Otto hired someone reliable for the job because he knows that he's in trouble. Truth, and see, this is like all such BS. So this is making like Norman look worse. The truth is, because his Octavius tech is modified from old Oscorp design, I think we can track him down through it. And he's like, really? And Norman's like, it'll take time, and we'll have to figure out what type of power he's using to get his gear operational. Otto knows I'm coming for him, and he's too scared to face an old friend. And then Peter's like, oh crap, my friends, I have to get back. Bye, Mr. Osborne. He jumps out the window, like the hole in the window. Osborne, he like sighs on his computer, he submits like a window repair. Peter comes in with a bag of ice. He's like, hey, the bodega was out of soda, but I got ice. And Nico's like, no soda? Bummer. Are you sure Spider-Man can't get us some, Pete? She kind of like chuckles and makes like spider eyes with her hands. It's like, he's in there, right? Haha. He chuckles nervously. He's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, Harry was trying to tell me that and then she grabs his backpack. The white mask and his notebook with his red and blue Spider-Man designs fall open. Nico gasps. So she obviously didn't believe Harry. And she's like, oh. And he's like, okay, Nico, and she's like, I gotta go. And she like leaves. Then Harry's been like grabbing a pillow. He's like, I thought you knew. It's like, way to go, Harry. And again, this is Norman's fault too. I blame him. At the 110th hangout, Lonnie's like sitting on a sofa. Big Don sits next to him. He's like, Carmilla hasn't made any more moves against us. She's probably just trying to freak you out. If you're worried, you can stay right here, or you can stay the night here. It's like, we'll keep you safe. And he's like, yeah, thanks, Don. And then Big Don puts his hand on his shoulder. Meanwhile, Carmilla is sitting in a car outside their place. She calls Gargan. It's like, the plan worked. He led me right to their hideout. I've got eyes on him. Gargan's like, good work. So he's with Otto. He's having a suit made. And he's like, Mr. Gargan, let me just say, you're gorgeous. So they're building a scorpion suit, like with the tail and everything like that. Gargan just laughs like an evil maniac. And that is the end of episode 6. So episode 7, which is available, episode 8 is available. 7 is Scorpion Rising. So you can check those out or wait till next week. And now the movie feature, Captain America, Brave New World. I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen. We're just jump to the Rotten Tomatoes. Critics score is 50%. So that's not great. Audience scored, popcorn meters, is 79%. It was like in the 80s. It's gone down a little bit. Critics consensus Anthony Mackie capably takes up Cap's mantle and shield, but Brave New World is too routine and overstuffed with uninteresting Easter eggs to feel like a worthy standalone adventure for this new Avengers leader. Okay, so I get that. One of the things I like about this, and so I'm just going to be kind of jumping all over the place with this. So one of the things is I feel like the Marvel universe, to me, it feels like the Marvel universe has been continuing. It feels like it's been a while since we've had, a Marvel movie. What was it last? I don't know why I can't think of it, but I like that things have kind of continued, have kind of changed and everything, and it feels like it's a different atmosphere. There are no Avengers now, and it's a different place, and so I kind of dig that, and we're seeing, because obviously Falcon has had an upgrade, and he's got like more moves and everything. So things have definitely been continuing with that. And then there's the fact that we got the Celestial thing from Eternals, which everyone rips on that, but that's obviously going to have a big role in the future of the Marvel universe, which we'll get to that. So I kind of like that. It does feel like that. I kind of also can see where, it's not a standalone movie because it is relying on different things, but you kind of expect that. All these movies are connected. It's always been like that. That's why at the end of the movies, there's always something that teases the next thing, because it's all that's how it's supposed to be. So I just think that that's kind of silly that people complain about that. Now, the other thing, I also wonder if, I hate to say it, I wonder if some people aren't happy that the fact that we have a black Captain America, oh my goodness, it's like, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's that, if that's the case, that's silly. I wonder if people who watch this, did they watch Falcon and Winter Soldier show? Because they may not really have a full sense of who Sam Wilson is. Maybe they saw Winter Soldier and like Endgame or whatever, but I just don't feel like people really know who Sam Wilson is and can really appreciate like what his journey has been and who he is. And I am a big Anthony Mackie fan. When the Winter Soldier came out, I was fortunate enough to get to go to a Winter Soldier press screening, and I got to interview Joe and Anthony Russo and Anthony Mackie. I didn't qualify to talk to Chris Evans or Sebastian Stan or Sam Jackson or Scarlett Johansson, but I got to talk to them, and I'm glad I did. And Anthony Mackie, man, he is hilarious. If you ever seen him in the interview, he's always been like that. He's always just so quick. He's so cool, and he's just so witty. And it was great. I just felt, he has a way of making you feel just like so comfortable. And, it's like you're just like having this conversation with them. And I wish I could find the recorded audio. I need to figure out where that's at. Like I have like different, I think it's like an older digital recorder, which is like a micro. I got to figure this out where they're at. I always think about that. And, just the whole cut the check. And, it's just, I really like his character. Now, this is also me saying I'm a huge Chris Evans Captain America fan. I mean, Winter Soldier is my favorite Marvel movie, still to this day. Even though like Endgame and Infinity War, those are just crazy, and there's something about something about Winter Soldier, just the dynamic between Captain America and Black Widow, and then when we've just a revelation of Winter Soldier, and just like the whole spy thing, and just like the ramifications and everything. So I really just love that movie, and we get introduced to Falcon in that movie, and he was a great addition to this cast of characters. So I totally as much as and I always loved Captain America in the comics. I don't like the fact that we have no more Steve Rogers. I do not agree with that, but that's how it is. It's different. It's movies, not the comics. So as much as I loved Steve Rogers and Chris Evans, I'm totally fine with Falcon, with Anthony Mackie, with Sam Wilson being Captain America. And like I said, he's got some cool moves, and it really shows what he can do. My thing was, we talked about last week about him not having super soldier serum, and what that means. There's the only thing that I have an issue with the movie, I think, is when he slices a car. You see it in the trailer. He slices a car with his wings. I'm like, how could he do that? Now we do find out that he's got like some like vibranium, some Wakandan tech on there. So, because he's kind of friendly with them. So that makes sense. That kind of helps the fact that he doesn't have the super soldier serum. And so, he can withstand a little more, because he kind of takes a beating a bit, which kind of makes him like a little rougher. And, there's some cool, like I said, cool fight scenes. Giancarlo Esposito, I mean, at first I'm like, who is this guy? Sidewinder. I was like, all he's doing is shooting, but he's kind of nasty in a way. So there's some things that's kind of cool. And we got like Joaquin, the new Falcon, potential Falcon. We saw him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, so he's back. And even like Harrison Ford as Ross, it's a little weird to get used to, but it's kind of cool, and I dig it. I'm a big Red Hulk fan, so I totally appreciate that. So I just look at all these things, and just for me, that's what makes this movie fun. It's not a perfect movie. No, it's not. And some things are a little cheesy, but it's just the fact that we have a Hulk, although it's a red Hulk fighting Captain America, a Red Hulk fighting Sam Wilson. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Is the CG animation like perfect and all thing? I don't even know, because I'm not going to sit there nitpicking like, oh wait, that scene right there, that looked kind of fake, or that was no. It's like you got to immerse yourself in the movie and just enjoy it. I love Marvel comics. I love the Marvel universe. I love every movie that we get, even if it's something like Eternals, which I've only seen once. I love the fact that we get to explore all these different things. And if people are like, oh, it's superhero fatigue, it's too much, then don't watch it all. Just hold off on it, pause, wait until you're ready, and then watch it. It just seems ridiculous where people complain that we get too much. It's like, you don't have to watch all the movies or all the show if you don't feel like it. And even if they are connected, if you're like, well, I have to watch it because there's going to be then watch it all. Either watch it and stop complaining, or don't watch it and don't complain, or just stop altogether. Because I feel like some people that complain, it's like, man, go back and watch your Snyder cut of Justice League, if that's what your thing. I mean, these movies are just, they're approachable, they're fun, and it's just, I can appreciate it. They're silly, but this one, even though there's some funny moments, there's kind of like a serious tone, because you can see that there's like a serious tone in the country. That's like, that this is, things aren't the same that they used to be, and the aftermath of Endgame and all that. So I can really appreciate all the stuff that happens. And then, we're tying up a lot of loose ends. The fact that we have Daniel Stern, we have the leader return. And yeah, I'm sure people are going to complain the way the leader looked. He looked a little cheesy, a little weird. But again, they're trying to lean into, look at him in the comics. He is ridiculous in the comics. There's a big green tall head. They're trying to accommodate some stuff. And you look at, I didn't care for how the Abomination looked in the movie, but it's going back to that, first Incredible Hulk movie. So because the leader, Daniel Stern, he has been affected, of course he's going to be a little mutated. So do people have a problem with that? I don't know, maybe, whatever. I'm able to overlook that. I do not care for the leader as a character at all, but the fact that there's a connection to that other Hulk movie that kind of continues to bring this, and the fact that mentioning Betty, I was like, oh yeah, where the heck has Betty been all this time? How come Hulk has never tried to make amends, or not make amends, but try to reconnect with her in any way? And the fact that you got Liv Tyler, even if it's like pictures or her voice, or that's all I'll say. I think that's great that they're pulling that in, even though it's Harrison Ford and not William Hurt. But it's cool, and I think also for me as a father with a daughter, just that I can feel for Ross, where he wants his daughter, he wants her to know who he is, or who he really is. That he's not, maybe he's done some bad things, but he's trying to be better. And the fact that he wants a just relationship with daughter, I totally can feel that. And so I just don't understand why people don't like it, where it's Marvel Comics turned to life, live action Marvel Comics. And we don't get that all the time. But it's the same thing, people didn't like Deadpool and Wolverine. And Deadpool and Wolverine was a silly, over-the-top movie, but it was fun. And seeing all this stuff, all those cameos, seeing that, I mean, I loved it. It was just, I never thought that we would get something like that. And the same thing here. So I don't understand why people are just so, I feel like they're just being so hoity-toity. And, if all you're going to do is every time a Marvel movie comes out, you're just going to complain, then just stop. Just don't even watch. It's like, oh, I'm going to give it my 1 star, 2 star, just say it's bad. It's just, man, just stop is what I say. So I don't know. It kind of bothers me in a way. Just everyone's a critic, I guess, is the thing. So how long have I been talking about this? So as you can see, I mean, I can appreciate the movie. I'm so glad this came out, and I think it has like $180 million budget. Like I said, critics are, some people liked it, some people didn't. See, like this, Brian Truitt. So he's a cool guy. I respect him. USA Today. He says, as excellent as Evans was as Cap, Mackey's shown equal skill in crafting his own version of what that character should mean. In his case, weathering the pressure and politics of being a national symbol and being adept with his words as his fists. So he gave it 2.5 out of 4. Okay. Let's see, who's this? Financial Times gave it 2 out of 5. Toronto Star, 1.5 out of 4. This other one's 2.5 out of 5. Fat Guys at the Movies, 3.5 out of 5. Fiction Machine, 6 out of 10. So, I mean, yeah, I call me a Marvel fanboy. I don't care, whatever. But I'm looking for these movies for entertainment, and I don't want to say like, oh, how was the musical score? Did it fit? How was the editing? How was the pacing? It's like, no, can I sit and enjoy the movie with my popcorn? Yes, I did. And maybe because I got free popcorn too, because I got reward cards, whatever stuff, that helped too. But I enjoyed it, man. But yeah, there and maybe there was a couple moments of dialogue was a little but man, I don't care. And if it was like really bad, I'm it's not like I'm just going to accept anything. It's not like just slap the Marvel thing under and I'll watch it. And like, no, as long as if you do like things that are totally like against who the characters, what they should be, then yeah, I'm going to have a problem with that. But I don't know. I just enjoyed it. And there was one cameo, which I don't know if it's a secret or not. It's probably going to come out. A character shows up in the middle, and someone's like, "Whoa!" It's like someone like down my row, and this is stuff like that. That kind of made me feel like good because you could tell. I was like, that is cool. This other person, thought it was cool. So you're sharing that experience, and so yeah. And then who else was there? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. What else is there to say? It's very. It's kind of ambitious in a way, and I feel like there's a lot that it has to try to do, and I can see there's going to be people that are resistant to Sam Wilson as Falcon or as Captain America, and it may be partially because he's black. It may also be partially because Chris Evans did such an amazing. I mean, he was Steve Rogers. He was a different character, and Sam Wilson knows that he's not Steve Rogers, and he even questions that. He's like, "What was I thinking doing this?" He's like, "I can't do this." And the person he's talking to is like trying to he's like, "No, you are you," and So and I love that scene that the person then when they left, like how they said goodbye. I was just it really touched me. I was like, that's so sweet. That like they've come this far, and you'll know who I'm talking about if you watch the movie, because I don't want to spoil everything. But I just really enjoyed it, and I just thought it was fun. Again, it's not perfect. It's not the greatest Marvel movie ever, but I just really enjoyed it, and I liked it. It felt different. It didn't even have like the Marvel opening logo. It had like a different logo that kind of made it a little more not sophisticated, maybe. I don't know, but. I feel like I'm just rambling now. Maybe this whole podcast I've been rambling, but I thought it was good, and it's worth seeing on the big screen, obviously, and you just got to let go. I mean, why are you watching these movies? You know, it's, yeah, and just like the hints of what's to come. You know, we get little teases and stuff. So I look forward to more, to seeing more. And it just, I'm really sad for you, for the people who didn't like it. And, you know, not everything has to be for everyone. That's fine. But I just don't understand when some people it's almost like they're angry. And that's what kind of bums me out. It's like, man, you can't even enjoy a movie that's just entertainment. And maybe because, you know, they've set the bar, so, you know, way back. So people are like, oh, ever since Endgame, it hasn't been. It's like each movie is different. So whatever. So I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy it too. And I was glad Andrew Loken, he's like, I enjoyed it too. So he's got good taste. And you must have good taste if you made it this far in the podcast. So thank you for listening. That is going to be it for this week. So again, big thanks to Andrew Loken because he's so cool. He's a big supporter. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes podcast entertainment every single week. I'll probably maybe do another. I feel like I got to do the next Amazing Spider-Man because the last episode I did with that Kazar dude, it's like a kind of continuation with that. So it would feel weird to interrupt it. I could obviously, but and then you know there was that other off my mind that I talked about that I'll probably do either the following week or so. But if you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. And that is ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, what movie is going to be next week? Next week is, I believe, going to be The Monkey. So I'm looking forward to this. So this is, I'm wondering how it's going to be, because I haven't read the story. So it's based off of the Stephen King short. And I'm really curious to see, because I mean, they're probably, obviously they have to expand it. So it's probably more like inspired by, you know, rather than like a true on adaptation. And who was it? Like Theo James is in it. You know, James Wan is involved with this. So it's like, yeah. So I'm really curious to see this, and I'm looking forward to that. So we have that. Then we'll have, you know, more Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I guess Harley Quinn, Prime Target, Severance. And I'll try to do some Cobra Kai. I don't know how many I'll do. So, you know, as now all episodes are, the final episodes are out, but I won't do all of them. But we'll see what we can do. And with that, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I need to catch my breath, not catch my breath. I need to catch up on sleep. Man, I'm been so tired. I'm looking forward to this week. This is going to be a good week, I hope. I hope you find time to do some fun things, and I hope you remember to be good to each other.